You will not believe what happens in Punch Club 2 because I know for a fact that I did not expect any of the events in this game to occur. The first Punch Club was a fighter management simulator, and now, flash forward many years into the future, the sequel expands upon the first game's mechanics and story by fleshing out the setting of the world. Reading the official game description states, "You've come here to read game descriptions and play fighter management sims, and you're all out of descriptions." Or that's what it used to say, at least up until last week. Now, there's a new description due to Lazy Bear's upcoming game, Bandle Tale, a League of Legends story. It reads, "Train, fight, and rise to the top in this knockout sequel to the smashing fighter management simulator. Mentor your fighter and guide him to become the ultimate champion. Choose from different combat styles, control his routine, and watch him kick some butt, like a proud sensei." And to be honest, that is a much better description. If you like the idea of a pseudo-cyberpunk time management grind game, then Punch Club 2 is for you. Go check it out in order to support Lazy Bear Games. If you want a better TLDR, I go over some Steam reviews in a section near the end, so click on that chapter if you're interested. Of course, because I am commentating on them after playing the game, they will contain some minor spoilers. I covered the first game last week, or at least last week from when I first read the short intro, and I would highly encourage you to watch it first in order to understand the evolution from game to game. I would also recommend for you to play Punch Club and Punch Club 2 first, because my coverage will spoil the game's mechanics, but more importantly, the main narrative. I would also like to shout out Shader Glass for the ability to use the RetroArch CRT filters externally. These high quality filters enhance the game's already excellent pixel art aesthetic and turn it up a notch. Now, without any further ado, let's begin. A recap of the first game's primary story beats serve as the strange dream of our player. The murder of our father from when we were a child served as the primary motivations for our character. Fluffy falling was a part of the DLC, and it is interesting to see it included here as that makes it a canon event. After all, Fluffy ended up being a major character by instigating the events which caused our character to become the Dark Fist. While just being a dream to the character, it does at least make the effort of being a part of the game itself. We stand up from our cot and walk into the living room. Our father, which we recognize as the player character from the previous title, asks us about our sleep. With a groan, we reply, "Don't ask." Our mother asks us about our recurring nightmares and for the sweets on the table. We fetch the candies, but in the time it takes for the camera to pan back up to the couch, our mother transformed into a slime. The Kafka-esque situation only increases in absurdity as our father stays unaware of her now differing physical condition and chastises our language. We get our dad to turn his head and look at our mother. Even upon seeing his wife's states, he stays calm and in an understanding manner states, "People change over the years." With his next line of dialogue, he shifts the focus of the topic of discussion onto what he considers the most important thing right now. Of course, we question this. Our father doesn't shy away from the subject and reveals to us that none of what we are experiencing at this moment is real. We have never met our father in real life. This information confuses our character. First, his mom turned into a slime, and now his dad is telling him that they have never met. Indeed, in such a situation, one could only hope that this truly was nothing more than a bad dream. Our father proceeds to reveal their true form, a man with the head of a lion. We call this entity Line Punk, but still question their intentions. Line Punk taunts us before shifting the location of our encounter to the streets. We threaten to beat everyone who threatens our family, and on cue, Line Punk's posse enters the fray. The man directly behind us raises his fist before ordering us to punch him in the head. We oblige. After every hit, the environment around us changes, taking us from one location to another until we end up back at where we began. Our punches had no impact, which leads the man to knock us out. We stand up, remembering this place from our dream. On the ground lies a stray computer. It echoes out some sage advice before warning us about how we cannot win the fight ahead of us with punches, kicks, or even a crowbar. The figure reveals himself as a hologram of our father, telling us to meet him there in the upper city before we cut to the prologue title card. Our character wakes up commentating on the crazy dream happening, but doesn't think about it any further before moving on towards his daily routine in a rather familiar looking garage. The second dream served as an intro for this game and presented us with a multitude of questions for which we seek answers. The first game did something similar by presenting the flashback of your father's death as a dream to introduce our character. However, while the stream takes a similar approach, there are a few issues. The first is that Line Punk's presence is never really explained. Our character barely even knows his own dad, let alone Line Punk, so why did they take the place of our father in our dream? The question of how they were even able to infiltrate our dreams in the first place is also a good one to ask, as it further prods into the world building. But it is much less important when it comes to understanding this game. It seems as the point of its presence was to take us to the conversation with the hologram of our father, but we are never given a reason for why the earlier events needed to occur. Our player character doesn't even question any of this and dismisses it as a strange dream. Sure, people don't remember most of their dreams in the first place, but if this is important information you wish to convey to the player, why make it a dream that the character doesn't remember? I also have a problem with the conversation itself. According to Linepunk's information, which I will understand the scene as the player's previous knowledge showing up in an abstract form, we barely know our father. So why is he showing up as a hologram in our dream in order to tell us to meet him in the upper city? Why is our player character not already motivated to do so if we don't hate him for having abandoned us? Why was the hologram even in a dream? It makes so much more sense if we went to the actual street our grandfather died on in-game and gathered more clues from there. And that's part of the reason I've discussed the short dream intro for so long. In Punch Club 1, finding the killer of his father motivated our character before the game itself even started. However, in Punch Club 2, our character just exists. We're about to do some daily training, but why are we training? What are we training for outside of just establishing the fact that our character works out? Is it just to introduce the game systems? Sure, you can have a passive character. In fact, most characters balance how active or passive they are in a story. It's just that the character should display some sort of agency in some aspect of their life. They can be passive in terms of story and plot, where stuff just happens to them, but there still needs to be an answer to the question of why that stuff happens to them in the first place. Now, to the game's credit, we do learn why, but that just reaffirms my point of why this entire dream scene was a wasted opportunity. A scene in a dream is a perfect opportunity to reference Kafka while maintaining the world's reality. Such a scene could have actually set up the greater themes explored by the science fiction setting of the game, and instead is treated as just another reference. This happens quite a bit. Almost everything in this game is a reference in one way or another, so that can't be helped. But because so many references tie into the themes explored by the original media, this is one that should have received the same treatment by virtue of how much the scene needs to set up. Our daily routine begins with a set of push-ups against our good old reliable mat. Our stomach grumbles. Wishing to appease our appetite, we interact with the metal machine. We greet Mr. Spencer, however, it informs us that our request is invalid. This is an occurrence that has never happened before, and we try asking Mr. Spencer again. Unfortunately, the machine does not capitulate, forcing us to call in the experts. That's right, it's our mom. We head into the living room and wake up our lovely mother to explain the situation at hand. We suggest a technician, but our mom reveals to us that we've been not paying for the food this entire time. Our character objects to this because it's only upon reaching Nirvana that he realized stealing is bad. Our mother then reforms her poor single mother speech, and you know what, she has some valid points. Our father abandoned her while she was still pregnant. That's pretty messed up. We open the world map, and this is where we are greeted with information overload. We're in the same city as the last game, based on physical location, but it has changed almost completely due to the explosion of technological growth. There's no doubt in my mind that this has caused other major shifts in the city's culture, and makes you wonder if this really can be called the same city. A real ship of thesis moment right here. Henry's house is our only other option. We visit him, but this time it wasn't to watch another retro movie, and instead explain our situation to him. Henry suggests to us that we could just buy something at the shop. However, we are a good boy and the shop is outside the neighborhood. Our mother would never let us go. This is played out like a joke, but our character never even leaving his neighborhood seriously makes me question his entire existence. Nonetheless, Henry encourages us before handing over the required pocket change to purchase a hamburger and some breakfast. Apu's shop still exists all this time later, and it's nice to see another familiar location and owner. Or, well, at least most of the owner. After acquiring enough capital, he desired to have the body of a young athlete. However, before being able to obtain his body, the food market crashed due to slimes, forcing Apu to keep his head in a jar. That was quite the story to unpack. Nonetheless, we enter the buy menu and the familiar face of Stone Clippy greets us. We purchase Henry's burger and a cooking kit, but Apu requires us to present our GPV chip. This is a problem because we don't have one, let alone know what one is. A man walks into the store and greets Apu. Apu greets Mr. Bobo Jr. and asks if he has come to rob him again. Bobo Jr. calmly answers yes. We object to the robbery, but once Bobo Jr. tosses us Slickers, our principles are brought into question. It's only once Apu reminds us of the robbery taking place that we take action. Enter the fight screen. Here is where all the information you need in the fight is displayed. It has the same basic mechanics as the previous game, but there are a few changes that are a strict improvement over the first. The health and energy bars are joined by an additional initiative bar, which is influenced by agility. Moving down to the skills, moves that attack and moves that defend are now split apart. This allows limits on how many moves of each type the player can use. The buffs for both types of moves are also limited by its own action bar. Our school selection now has more of a role to play than just being a specialization. The actions queued up contribute to the perk progress of the school as long as the type matches. The more actions of the type you include, the more buffs you receive, at least until the designated limit. By granting additional bonuses, this allows for a more flexible skill set while still maintaining the focus on a specific school. After reading through the skills, we fight with Bobo Jr. The actual fight takes place at the shop itself. This helps the player connect with the location and makes the fight seem more real. The moves of each fighter are compelling, and the animation in combination with the sound effects makes each hit feel impactful. Fights are dynamic, and the shorter timer, along with the initiative bar, eliminates the need for a 4x speed up button, which is great. We lose the first round against Bobo Jr. Moments before our cop drags us both to the station because of the rule of the fist. We didn't rat Bobo Jr. out because snitches get stitches. He thanks us by offering a job at a slime farm. Bobo Jr. leaves and a moving hologram officer asks us about our non-existent GPP chip. We explain the situation to him. The cop mentions how not having our chip is a shame and a situation our father would not approve of. The mention of our father is a shocking part. Our mother never talked about him in detail, so we, of course, inquire about his existence. Although most of the information is classified, our father was one of the greatest fighters alive. We want to know more, however, such information is only available to police officers. The opportunity of a job and information on our father catches our intrigue, but first we will need 2,000 good person points and to learn all of the laws. Being such a nice guy, the man drops the charges from the brawl and will give us our chip. We will accept that chip, but question what will happen if it takes control of us. That's where the cop flips the script. The whole point of the chip is to control you in the first place. It's only once you get over 9,000 GPP points that you become a good person and are granted access to the upper city. Good person points are normally earned by people contributing to the vigorous aspects of culture in the form of art. And we've got just the one. That's right, the martial arts. Our installed chip grants us access to our heads-up display. Chippy even pops up to tell us about some edibles in our multi-passport. This is where all the menus in the game are stored. I respect tying the HUD's existence into a core aspect of the game's world. Reduction in narrative dissonance is always much appreciated when it makes sense to do so. However, I do have a gripe with the scene. Well, that's not true, it's a gripe with the previous scene. If the cop was going to give us information about our father, then why does the intro dream exist? Yeah, I'm still talking about that super dream. It serves no point and, more importantly, wasted a Kafka reference. Pain. We return home only to find our mom worried sick from our absence. We discuss the day's events with our mother. Right after finding out Adriana was pregnant, her father entered the biggest tournament on the planet. Naturally, he won, but immediately after that, when his wife needed him the most, he vanished. Adriana has no idea why he vanished, but the reason for her doesn't matter. Just the fact that he did was proof to her that he never cared about them in the first place. And from her perspective, it's easy to understand why. We tell her about our visit to the police and our intent to join them in order to become the best fister of them all. This confirms that we have indeed developed daddy issues. While still wishing the best for us, our mother makes sure that we've eaten before we head out. We open the fridge to access our food bank. Different types of food will restore varying amounts of health and hunger, but in addition to their dollar cost, there is also a time cost. This brings us into the main time management aspect of the game. The first game sectioned off at what activities were available to us by measuring everything in terms of the total amount of days lapsed. Punch Club 2 expands upon the system by changing the focus and managing the amount of time you have in a day instead. Certain activities or applications are only available at certain times, so each action forces the player to analyze and decide upon whether the opportunity cost to progress with said action is worth it at the current time. The cooking kit restores 3 hearts alongside 45 hunger, but it will cost us 90 minutes to prepare. This takes us from 15 till 7 to 15 past 8. We rest up to max our energy before heading out. Silver Gym closes in 30 minutes, and the only way to get there in time is to pay the $4 bus fare. It doesn't make sense to head there at this time, and thus we take a trip to Bobo's farm instead. Bobo Sr. is another familiar face from the first game, and the passage of time has done him well. He's still quite the bulky man, but his long overcoat, alongside the unexplained ability to levitate, has increased his intimidation levels by tenfold. Here at his farm, we will punch slimes for our job. In a sidebar with Bobo Jr., he lets us know that he doesn't actually enjoy helping his father. The line, "It's not like anybody ever asked me what I want," clues us in. It's clear that this troubled relationship is caused by the slime farm's success, as it seemed to have drained most of Bobo Sr.'s energy and time. Bobo Jr. wishes to escape this town's endless gang wars and illegal activities, but nobody, not even his father, believes in the ability to achieve a better life. We aren't familiar enough with Bobo Jr. to learn why or what he wishes to accomplish to himself, but do learn that the slimes from this farm were the source of the food generated by the dispenser in our garage. Delicious. Eager to start our job, we wish to put on our outfit. However, this action only brings about the ire of Bobo Sr. as punching slimes this late at night produces a noise output that the residents of the area have deemed undesirable. This restriction explains our job hours and helps in making the world more alive. Unable to work at this time, we return to Apu's shop with our newly installed GPP chip. Since we protected his shop, we ask him if there's a chance at him offering us a discount. This scene is a callback to the previous game where we also had the chance to take care of the man robbing Apu's store. My choice did not stop the robbery from taking place, so nothing more happened. But what is interesting is that in my analysis, I questioned what could have happened if we saved Apu, and I assumed that we would receive some sort of discount. I still don't know if we would have received a discount, but the game bringing it up here is a purposeful subversion of expectations and makes us question the actions we will take as a player. We stopped a robbery, and because this is a game, I, as a player, expect some sort of reaction in order to encourage or discourage that behavior. However, perhaps because saving Apu wasn't an actual choice made by the player in this instance, the game remembers that Apu is still unable to purchase a new body, and thus we don't receive a discount and are instead pushed towards a new job. Unfortunately, it is here that Apu informs us that due to the introduction of slimes into the marketplace, pizza has also lost its place. Instead, we visit Club Street at night in order to make some noodles. We enter said club, but aside from vibing out with the aged up Mighty Bruce, there isn't anything else for us to do here. Go is here to reference Tarantino, but aside from that, she has no presence in the rest of the game, even though is able to highlight her character and talk to her. We walk back outside, where the man in a tan trench coat, slurping on some noodles, distracts us with his grumblings. He proposes that the city is full of hopelessness before we learn of his ex-cop origins. We question his memory problems, but learn that his partner suffered a fate worse than death, becoming a holocop. Our character questions why becoming a hologram is such a terrible fate. The cop proposes that holograms are either a benefit or hazard. Somehow our character connects that to the question of free will. Fortunately, the cop does not wish to talk to us any further. The game constantly introduces and teases us with interesting questions, but due to the type of game this is, it fails at actually letting the player explore them in a meaningful way. That wasn't a criticism, by the way, just an observation. After all, this isn't a role-playing game and wasn't marketed as such. The question of what happens to a person when they become a hologram is heavy. After all, we're talking about taking the memories of a person before they died and giving them a new body. The cop clearly has issues with the system, but we are unable to propose our own point of view in order to understand his position any better. We return home and do some push-ups on the mat until it's time for a break shift at Bobo's farm. A major change to how training is conducted stems from the fact that the time system replaced the day system. That change is that we no longer lose stats at the end of each day. I actually like the fact that we would lose stats if we didn't maintain them, but because the scope of the game has changed, removing the system as it was is fine. However, I'm a bit disappointed that it wasn't reworked and then re-implemented. The trade-off of completing other activities while having your stats decay at the end of each day added a weight to each of your decisions, and increased the overall challenge. The work interface has improved massively from the previous game. Along with showing our progress through a bar section, we get a pixel art animation of our character punching some slimes before they are sucked up by the vacuum. Upon completing one cycle of work, we earn our reward. In this case, 29 credits, some stamina experience points, and 1 bar of progress towards a promotion. Promotions will not only grant us a raise, but also reputation points which grant us the ability to purchase faction-specific items. All of this is traded in exchange for resources of hunger, energy, and mood. So although we earned 29 credits from one cycle, purchasing a single cooking kit reduces our net profit from that time to just 4 credits. If we were to use that money for a bus ticket instead of taking the time to walk everywhere, we would be out of money just as fast as we made it. The dancing janitor has no dialogue, but his moves are cool. We approach the shady man, but as we get closer to him, he just walks off the screen, leaving us with nothing else to do at Apu's shop. The next morning arrives, and the holocop forces us to finally visit Silver's gym due to our agreement. In the years gone by, the gym has received the equipment upgrades it required, although the most eye-catching feature is the hero poster depicting our father on the wall. Silver, of course, hypes up his futuristic equipment while calling out the Russian mafia's junkyard. Luckily for us, his league has also stood the test of time. We approach a giant holoscreen, but the capped man with a harsh 5 o'clock shadow, named Huey, heckles us for fun. Apparently, he was a bandit who used to work for Bobo about 20 years ago. Well, we could take educated guesses, knowing a more approximate time of how long it has been since our dad disappeared is nice, at least in terms of the timeline. Clippy goes through the finer details of the league list, and it's nice having this formally introduced to you instead of just being hinted at. The ability to look at the stats of future opponents is useful when planning out who and when you wish to fight them. Another important component of fights is the time slot the fight will occur in. Instead of just whenever in the day, there is a limited time in which you can accept the fight. If you don't show up, it obviously counts as a loss. Clippy pushed us towards having our first fight right now, even though we haven't completely healed up. Luckily for us, JD is nothing more than a tutorial opponent and is thus dispatched with haste. Silver congratulates us, but Huey decided to come back just to heckle us. Ignoring him, Silver continues by handing us a protein bar that he sells for credits at his gym thanks to living in a world of victorious capitalism. Irregardless of your opinions on it, capitalism is a common point of discussion in science fiction settings because of science fiction's exploration of the human condition in a world where the person is a limiting factor. While this line here is an epic capitalism bad dunk, it falls short of being clever because trading one resource for another is not inherently bad. Luckily, there are actual indirect explorations of how capitalism affects people in this game. I'm not even talking about the events that take place in this game that you could associate as criticisms. Instead, I'm talking about how the topic is interwoven into the primary currency of the game. That's right, good person points. Social capital is inarguably just as important of a topic to explore, especially since our goal in this game as its character is to accrue over 9,000 good person points. Only by having enough good person points will you become a good person. But who determines what actions even get you those points? Why is it even that you need good person points to be considered a good person in the system? Who even determines if an action is good or bad? We know that contributions to the arts grant points, and in this case it's the people who made the microchip that decide so, but what gives them the right to make that decision in the first place? These are all questions the game is asking and thus forcing the player to think about. Besides increasing our clout, we can redeem good person points for our new abilities. We pick up the standard block action as I plan on focusing our build towards stamina, just like the previous game. Looking at the tooltip clues us into the greater details of the move. Strength directly impacts the damage dealt, and more importantly, the energy cost. We head into the equipment room and a bot gives us the tour. We aren't able to use the immersive VIP pool, leaving us stuck with the newer training machines. In exchange for gaining stats without having to move our body, we spend a determined amount of time, hunger, energy, and money. Leaving this technological miracle, which has massive in-world applications that would fundamentally change society, undiscussed is probably the right call when thinking about the scope of the game. I do think that if they had more time, this technology could have been explored more if a greater focus was placed on rival fighters. The sun sets after a short training session. We were unable to visit the Russian Mafia-controlled junkyard earlier in the day, thus we head there now. While locations and activities being time-gated affects the player urgency, an issue arises when it comes to manipulating time itself. There is no activity or menu that allows the player to define the specific time. While idling at an activity or walking around the city accomplishes the same result, the amount of time you waste doing this adds up, especially later in the game. We find Grisha and Dynamo at the junkyard, and ask them if they have any spare equipment. They first accuse us of being a spy, but we assure them that we are only here for the gains. We take a look at the equipment and after seeing their prices, ignore them. In the previous game, they were an absurd waste of money for minimal gain, and it seems like the trend continues even if there are some perks to boost their output. Although we're not a fan of their prices, we are a fan of not being accused of being a spy. Grisha is interested in our proposition and gives us the certain training skill bending job. Having each of the 3 jobs grant us experience and one of the 3 primary stats is a nice bonus, but the mechanic feels unexplored, especially since there isn't a downside to working at all of the jobs. The slime farm takes place early in the morning, while the noodle shop starts towards the evening. The latter's time slot not only conflicts with working at the junkyard, but it also earns us less per shift. Making noodles is now pointless. If you wanted to train agility, you would always choose the option to earn a greater wage at the junkyard and then spend that training at the gym. Instead, it makes more sense for each of the jobs to be skill checks with progress gated behind them. This makes your focus on one stat more meaningful alongside making more sense in universe. People develop a specific skill set which are then used at a specific job. Of course, this isn't always the case, but within the game's logic, it's good enough to follow. Promotions are also now more impactful because now every character can't just grind to access all of the rewards behind them, making player choice that much more meaningful. We make the most use of our time before our first fight, so much so that I can engage with the 90-minute skipping rope near activity 100 minutes before the match starts. My level 4 in stamina was not needed though because I'm against JD again. Silver congratulates us, but our moves give him a sense of deja vu and remind him of a good friend of his from 20 years ago. Silver postulates that we are a clone of his good friend. We wish for more information on his friend, aka our father, but after failing to remember a cool story about him, he redirects us towards gaining access to the upper city if we wish for more information. After beating off enough slimes, we earn our first promotion. This requires us to beat up our unknown slime punching rival, Todd. We also earn our first fighting style based on stamina, Aikido. Blocking the initial style behind job promotions is a good idea, but I can't help but feel that this choice influenced the ability to allow the player to access every job without any investment. Our next fight is against Sangmo. Clippy explains the intricacies of choosing a school. Each one is tied to a stat and grants access to different perks based on the amount of selected skills that match that school. In theory, choosing how many of each school's skills you want to then unlock a perk is a good idea. Unfortunately, the moves you unlock are already dependent on reaching a milestone in that stat. So in a stamina-focused school, I will always pick my stamina-focused moves because those are the only moves I have unlocked in the first place. Back home, our mother asked us to grab some medicine because of the brewing geomagnetic storm. We oblige and head to the shop. When asked, Apu gives us the medicine and a gift for her free of charge. She appreciates the gift, but the awkwardness of the situation causes us to skedaddle. After a short workout session, we go back to prepare our cooking kit. However, our mother is an epic gamer and goes to bed at 8 AM. The noise from cooking would wake her up, and thus we are prevented from accessing the fridge. We can remedy this situation by purchasing some sleeping pills from a rented out vending machine in Apu's shop. This is here to limit the time we have access to the fridge if we don't spend the money on enough candies. In theory, this is an okay enough gameplay loop, but in reality, this never becomes an issue. 8 AM is prime slime baiting time, and by the time the shift ends, our mom is already awake. It does slightly affect the end time of the junkyard job, but because of the extra cash it provides, if you practice some basic time management skills, this is barely an inconvenience. Reversing the time so you could not cook at night would have made this mechanic function more like how it probably should. Lord Huey is our next fight. Upon defeat, Huey finds that our punches oddly resemble the ones he experienced 20 years ago. Instead of making the obvious connection, he assumes that we are the Dark Fist. He walks away confused, but it's clear to us that he might have more information on our father. While in our garage, Silver calls us to ask if we can throw the next match. We refuse because throwing a match will net us nothing. Silver doesn't even offer up a reward or a sob story to get us to commit. Lil Bobo hits us up not much later. We've built enough of a rapport that he trusts us enough for him to invite us to the abandoned house at night. Once there, Lil Bobo informs us that he works as a hacker. In exchange for a little cash, he can force the next fight to net us extra GPP if we win. If we lose, we will have to cough up that extra GPP to our opponent instead. This is a good mechanic that I end up utilizing in the beginning, but less so the longer the game went on. This is primarily because there isn't a good incentive to do so. You might earn more GPP, but it isn't that much more. GPP is only used when purchasing new moves from the skill tree, and we end up having far more than enough already. If the rewards were greater, or if accessing Lil Bobo was made more convenient rather than having to access the building late at night before a fight, then I might have used it more. The software chip he installs is a nice in-universe reminder, but I don't think it's a good enough solution. We entered the slime farm and witnessed Bobo Sr. chastising his son for accidentally flushing down hundreds of dollars worth of slime larvae down the drain. After many shifts, it's time for our next promotion, so we offer to find the missing larva in exchange. With enough reputation, we also talk to Bobo Sr. about his productivity increasing software. Each job has their own software, but they all grant similar enough perks. We gain an extra 25 reputation with the faction, increased work efficiency at that job, and extra stamina experience. Just replace stamina and the reputation gain with the relevant stat for each job. The only relevant buff is the reputation gain. Not because 100 rep nets us anything, but the rewards for 50 rep at the slime farm grants us access to slime sandwiches. We then make a terrible financial decision and buy one of the VHS tapes Apu is fleecing us with. The movie Stony grants us some OSR points along with unlocking new perks. I don't think training with physical equipment is any good and end up purchasing the basics perks from the previous tree. It would have behooved us to pick up this perk earlier as our gains from the pushmat are already much reduced, but we'll take any bonus we can get. Even though Mad Mike has a high GPP, his stats are paltry, allowing us to win in just over 2 rounds. With that distraction out of the way, we head into the sewers. We traverse the course, find a missing earbud, have some raccoons act as a guide, encounter an ancient box of pizza, witness graffiti questioning GPP or the very existence of the upper city, and observe a rusty helmet from Power Armor, all before a man wrapped in tinfoil ambushes us. He claims immunity from Wi-Fi and allegiance to the Resistance before challenging us to a battle. Because of how the school system works, perks are not super relevant to us. However, many fighters have custom fighting styles and perks unique to them. Some of these are references, and the provided in-world flavor is a really nice attention to detail. Even if we were prepared, the Resistance fighters' stats are much higher than ours, thus we are defeated. And to add insult to injury, the man calls us as weak as a vegan, before kicking us out. Victory is out of reach for now, and thus we head back to our daily grind. Skinny Jenkins from the VIP pool is your typical Discord moderator, and what's being done with him is interesting. His stats are all stuck at 1, but his moves and perks are absurdly strong in order to compensate. It's neat to see a fighter balance this way, as it flexes the unseen balance of their system, but it doesn't translate into a unique fighting experience. Casey, the pizza cafe owner from 20 years ago, approaches us after our victory. He can't tell us all of the details now, and instead gives us the location to Mick's house. The holocop from the police also contacts us right after, inviting us for more training at the station. We travel to Mick's house and find it in a ruinous condition. Being our father's coach, Casey assumes Mick has some information on him, and although he's no longer with us, some hacker saved his consciousness onto a hard drive. Casey also introduces the idea of the corporation being bad, which is truly shocking. Through a bit where we pretend to not understand Casey, we are tasked with restoring the gym. Casey takes his leave, while ominously hinting for us to meet him in the sewers. Not long after, we meet Emmett, the mad scientist, and GLODOS, the bot he created. Through mind-hacking technology, GLODOS knows why we're here, and the mad scientist tasks us with retrieving the appropriate parts from the Robo Factory junkyard. Asking him about some software launches us into a short scene full of jokes before letting us purchase any. the most important software type available for purchase are the focus programs, and in our case, it's the stamina focus. From training, we earn significantly more stamina in exchange for lesser rates in the other two stats. This is easily the most important software in the game, as you really only want to focus on one stat in the first place, and this wastes less resources in accomplishing that goal. We don't have the money for it now, but are able to pick up Lolkek for free, even though it has the daily cost of $1. Every morning, it will provide us with a toe-curling joke. I kept this active for a few days because of the novelty, but whenever I ran out of money, I didn't reactivate the software. I should have toggled it whenever I needed to restore my mood, but experiencing the pop-up every day was getting quite tiresome. At the gym right before our fight begins, a delivery man approaches Ruth. He informs her about losing her delivery for 15 yoga mats before walking off. Enraged at his uselessness, Ruth unleashes her anger upon us. Even though our stats are better than hers, the fight is close. This brings me to mention the fact that agility, and more specifically the dodge skill, is broken beyond belief. Not being able to hit a target is unbelievably punishing, and even though our reserved energy is much greater, the fight is terribly close. Seriously, she knocks us down while being on 1 HP and drags the fight a quarter into round 4. After we defeat her, Ruth understandably declares this as one of her worst days ever before storming off. We ask Silver more about Huey and the Dark Fist, but don't learn anything. The scene does develop Silver's character a bit more though. Finding ourselves back in the sewers, we re-encounter the so-called resistance fighter and win, resulting in a successful recovery of the slimes. We return them to Bobo Sr. without much fanfare and earn our promotion. Now our earnings are boosted to $37 per shift. At the junkyard, we defeat a Russian fight robot and earn the spare parts for Mick. Mad Chad is our next bout in the rookie ring. We win, and after Silver's continues congratulations, some bozos heckle us. They depart, and Ruth actually greets us just to apologize and to set up a friendly spar. We head on over to Abu's shop and meet a resistance fighter spouting nothing but flat earth facts. Huey, as the fake Dark Fist, makes his entrance, but since his existence is useless, we fight the resistance member instead. Unfortunately, due to his ability to recite a YouTube video's opinion as his own, we barely lose. If I recovered properly, I could chance the win, but since there's no urgency when it comes to beating up the resistance fighter, I ignore him for now. Back at the Dream Lab, we learn that Emmett was the scientist that built the entire economy, but his projects have left him destitute. Illegal activities are always exciting, and we agree to deliver the implants to the officers on the bridge. In regard to the spare parts, we hand them over to Emmett, who hands us a restored Mick. The only issue is that we don't have the password to access its contents. We arrive at the bridge, but before we are able to give the policeman Emmett's goods, we fight and just barely eke out the win. We return with the money in hand and collect our 100 credit contribution. Root meets us in the gym and challenges us to a spar. Even with our nerfed total HP, we still win. In the post-fight conversation, Root invites us to her fitness classes, and in a far too detailed response, end up declining. Instead, we bring up watching movies with our friend Henry in relation to the ability to watch the piece of recorded content over and over again. Although this action places us in the friend zone, at least our idea inspired Ruth. Before our next fight begins, I unlock our most powerful skill yet. This is where Clippy introduces us to Tonus. Tonus points exist to limit the amount of powerful skills we can use in each fight. However, since there's a greater importance on each individual fight, rather than blowing through as many as possible, this never ended up being a limiting factor. It's here that we also unlock the Path of the Angry Tortoise. Looking at the new skill tree, there's a lot of exciting options and possibility to have specific builds. I'm sure I did not explore it to its full potential, but unfortunately, outside of a few circumstances near the end of the game, I found that the correct option is almost always to use your strongest move. We take down Mad Matt. Aesop and Plato talk to me after the fight. He insults me by claiming we watch reruns of Sabrina the Teenage Witch before making some obscure reference that I did indeed have to look up. Although they have their fun in making fun of me, their intentions right now are to invite me to the nightclub. Our next rookie bout against T800 is close, but we just managed to inch it out. Silver continues to give us words of encouragement, but out of what he said, the extreme neurotrainers grabbed our attention. We head deeper inside and talk to the engineer working on repairing the neurotrainer. He wants someone to bend him a climb bottle in 3D space, and the only place to find such an extraordinary bender is at the junkyard. However, Grisha is just as lost when it comes to such a matter. Instead, he refers us to a true bender under the bridge, Spoon Boy. We practice our bending skills a bit more though, and earn a chance at our promotion. Sergey pops out from the hut and we kick his ass. Moving on to the next rookie bout, we fight Plato and earn a physical and spiritual victory against him. For our third promotion at Bobo's Slime Farm, we are tasked with running a special lunch to officers at the bridge. Under said bridge, we talk to a smuggler who offers up some spicy potions. I never needed to use these stat boosters, but I'm sure they work exactly as stated. The UI also does clue the player into the possible negative side effects contained within as well. Monk Gyatso denies us access into the sewers. We then listen to the radio and hear a man echo out his depressing thoughts about the lonely city. Too real. Spoonboy is our next target. And even Spoonboy claims that bending a Klein bottle into our 3D space is impossible. It is only by believing that such a task can be accomplished. $50 doesn't hurt either. I obtained the unobtainable, and Spoonboy clues us in into his grandfather's healing abilities. We also learn that in order to enter the sewer, we need to be worthy. Of course, such worthiness can only be provided by giving them AirPods. And unfortunately, just the right pair does not work. We return back to the gym and give the man the spare part he required, making the Extreme Neurotrainer live. Not long after, we meet Aesop in the ring, and although we never found the time to meet him in the club, we'll get him punch drunk one way or another. Boo Boo Pity Kitty mentally breaks down after his defeat, and with that, we've won Silver's league. Silver congratulates us as Vince arrives on the scene. Uncle Barry claims to manage the best in the business and invites us into his office. As quick as Silver is, if the upper city is our goal, then he's the man. We give Algernon his flowers in the club, good read by the way, and learn that he's already putting out his second album. His debut doesn't exist, but he's hitting that sophomore slump from the start. Too real. It's a shame that I didn't experience a pre-victory event, and while I'm fine with this outcome, it's a bit baffling that the ability to miss it was even put into the game when your choices affect almost nothing else in the game. We head to the police precinct and get informed on starting to learn the laws. Of course, we immediately break some when we get our ass handed to us by the officer on the bridge. Apparently, Boba Sr. introduced some special fibers to the slime sandwich in particular. We wish for our second promotion at the junkyard, but the overall morale and spirits are down. We determine that Henry might be able to help. We go talk to him, and somehow the perfect tape for the situation ended up in the sewers during the last rainstorm. The sun rises and we enter Uncle Barry's office. After some vegetable metaphors cause our stomach to rumble, some dude jumps out of the neighboring skyscraper as the upper divisions are explained to us. The most important factor here is that the fights aren't free. If we wish to challenge an opponent with a greater GPV than us, we have to pay them. However, if we fight against someone from a lower rank, then they have to pay us. It's an interesting system that ties in with this game's commentary on society. Goro Majima is our first opponent in this new league, but his fire fit burns our HP down. We visit the police station, this time with some questions. The holocop lets us know that the scorned man we met at the noodle shop was K, before vague posting about his story and how they split apart. Wow, bad stuff happened that causes death, no way. The holocop then hands us an important badge, hoping for us to hand it to K, as it holds some sentimental value. Back at the bridge, we give the policeman another slime sando before snapping him out of it. With this, we achieve the highest paid job at the slime farm. In the sewers, we meet the resistance fighter Edgar Allan Poe and stick him underneath some floorboards. Finally, we meet Casey once more. He's not alone though. Along with him is the wise ninja mutant crocodile Bill. Casey lets us know that the password to Mick's hard drive is the name of the game. Right outside the little sewer hovel, we find the left pair of our AirPods in order to complete the set. Before we are able to take our leave, we encounter another resistance fighter. Even though we have a 7-point stamina lead, it doesn't manifest in any tangible benefits. Stamina works as it should by increasing our energy meter, which in turn allows us to use more moves per turn. The actual issue is with stamina's relationship with strength. The increase in damage that a higher strength stat provides does not offset the move's larger energy cost. So, because our moves cost more energy in the first place, our gains in stamina are essentially irrelevant. The easy way to solve this issue is to just increase the total energy gain per level in stamina. Turning the scale of energy gain to one that's more exponential could also work. Of course, this might skew the balance too hard in favor of stamina, and thus, in return, lowering the base damage of the stamina path moves would even it out. We go to Henry's house first, but after discovering that we are unable to watch a tape, we hand it over to Grisha and earn a promotion. The Russian food rewards are okay, but when compared to Bobo Slime delicacies, their hunger and energy recovery is lacking for the price we pay. Spoonboy waxes poetic before Clippy explains how we can control our energy. Although the points shifted goes into the tonus of another stat, this is a respec tool. And it does exactly what a respec mechanic needs to do while not destroying the game balance immediately. If anything, this mechanic should have introduced itself in Chapter 1. Perhaps that would have incentivized the player to play around with the different fighting schools available, rather than just sticking with whatever style you've already invested resources into. Of course, this would require some changes like introducing the concept of tonus a bit earlier. Giving the player a generic strength, agility, and stamina tonus moves along with their starter ones could also help enforce these ideas and demonstrate the difference between the schools. We hand the avatar the now complete and balanced set of AirPods. With proof of our ability, we gain access to the secondary entrance or exit to the sewers. This shortcut will allow us to waste less time or energy when navigating the sludge, and with those resources freed up, we are then able to invest them into other activities. Of course, when I say activities, I mean work. We go back to work because we need more money. Funnily enough, most of this game is not us punching other fighters, but instead slimes. I don't doubt this is a commentary on the state of society, but the game doesn't bring it up directly, so neither will I. After some more neurotraining, we hear the engineer is upset about his favorite wrench going missing. Thus, we head on over to the junkyard and learn that Dianamo's toolbox was stolen as well. The perpetrator is hanging out at the robot factory, but before we catch them, there's another criminal that we should attend to first. After having stood here for hundreds of hours, the resistance member offers up some super convincing arguments, but after our fight, the only flat object is his back when laying against the floor. Huey is convinced that we are the Dark Fist and wishes to take our place, but his abilities are as threatening as some slimes. This is one of the weird disconnects the time system causes. I spent a triple-digit amount of hours training and working, but all this time later, these two bozos continue to stay here. Having this be a timed event where Huey and the resistance member fight during a certain time period, with the addition of preventing access to Apu's shop, would then make completion of this event a greater priority for the player. This presents an in-character explanation for each of the parties involved, while still inconveniencing the player and managing to fit in the hour measurement system. We find ourselves talking to the avatar again, hoping for some sage advice. Unfortunately, he only offers up his pipe, and it's not one that we can smoke some sage with. However, we cannot discount the power of music, especially since his pipe heals our neurotraining woes for 20 bucks. This is a mechanic that is vital to progressing at a reasonable pace when using the neurotraining machines, as the mental overloads they cause reduce the efficiency of training by a minimum of 10%. It is important to note that the pipe cannot be blown multiple days in a row, but this doesn't cause any issues until later in the game, as most of the player's time is spent working for money. The killer robot is excited as we head into the robot factory, but instead of being the sexy mama he desired, we're a creature of flesh and blood. We win the fight, but even though the robot realizes its wishes to eradicate the human race, our character just ignores the threat and walks off. Back at the junkyard, Grisha offers up promotion if we can bring some implants to the officers at the bridge due to the courier's unreasonable delivery costs. Of course, as we arrive at the scene, the courier is already there, being a baby about us breaking some laws. We beat up the officer, who lets us go scot-free because the only real law is the law of the fist. The boy threatens us, but what is he gonna do besides not doing anything like he does in the first place? We return and Grisha promotes us. I will complete the nil jobs later in the video, but right now I can safely say that all of the job promotion quests feel like a bit of a wasted opportunity. Instead of giving us quests which explore the operations of each faction, they're just random fetch quests that always ends with you beating someone up and are only loosely connected to the story being told. Our next second division fight after Goro Majima is Gold. No, I mean, the actual name of the fighter is Gold, and it's obvious that this man is actually just Silver. We wonder what Silver is doing here when he has his own league, and in the short post-victory conversation, we learn that he misses us. Whether he wishes to right his past wrongs, or if he's grown more sentimental in his old age, this more human approach towards building up his character is a nice change of pace. Uncle Barry helps us celebrate our victory with some donuts. The donuts are over at Apu's shop, but if we were to rely on delivery men, they would never get to us in time. Speaking of, guess who shows up at the shop? Having experienced the man's lack of everything, the only option left in our arsenal is to talk to his manager. Although we lose the fight right now, the delivery boy's stats are a good example of how negative a high strength is for a stamina build. Over at Club Street, we conversate with the ex-detective. He gives us some life advice while skirting around the topic of free will, but the goal of this conversation was to further the main narrative. We try to get him to talk about his now robot partner and take out the beeping police badge. Well, it turns out that it's actually meant for tracking and spying in on our conversations, which is why it's beeping. The detective tells us to toss away the police badge before tossing himself to the wind. We can't do anything with this additional information, but it does instill some doubt about the intentions of the police into the player. Of course, we head to the station for answers, but are left dry as there isn't even any recognition of the events that just happened from either our player or the cops. We meet Silver in his gym, and in asking us how it's going, we end up in a sparring match. Our victory loosens up Silver's tongue as he starts to give our players some more information about our dad. This is where we get another rare mention of the medallion, but no more information other than our father was searching for it. The other is how our father loved animals, especially his pet cat Fluffy. This information is pretty light on details. This works in character as Silver didn't know our dad too well, which we know from the first game, and it works for the game as it fills in some details for those who didn't play the first game either. Aside from the typical work, train, work, fight, work, grind, We finally reach the second promotion stage in the noodle shop. The failure of a delivery boy shows up without the desired package once more, forcing us to delve into the sewers. We fight another resistance fighter, but who cares at this point. The much more interesting detail is the graffiti on the wall that says Einstein didn't chill himself. I don't have anything special to say about it, besides the fact that it made me exhale out of my nose. Although the food is rotten and reeks of the sewers, the noodle man doesn't care and gives us a promotion. Many in-game hours later, we apply for our final noodle shop promotion. This one requires us to deliver noodles to Henry and the policeman at the bridge. The delivery boy shows up to rat out our illegal delivery again, but he's somehow still ignorant to the rule of the fist. Luckily, Henry doesn't wish to fight us for his noodle delivery. With both of the noodles being delivered, the noodle man says something about how they might haunt us later, but saying vague nonsense is in the noodle man's character. That wraps up all the side jobs and their promotions, and my feelings on it are still the same. They help in building up the storylines of some of the other characters in the world, but they don't build up into anything independently, which means there's no resolution, and thus the player is left unsatisfied. Changing the already made quest would require a ton of reworks to the entire game, so instead I'd propose adding a 4th promotion quest instead. This way all of the content can stay the same, and then can influence a new quest, which would relate more to the operations of the faction themselves. This could also require a commitment towards that specific faction, which would prevent the player from working at any other location, instead of being tied down to the software. With this commitment, you could then dole out much greater rewards. I go to grab my celebration donuts and punch out a hole in the delivery boy's head. Too bad there was nothing there in the first place. With our victory, we get the donuts from the delivery boy and the location of his manager. The robot at the robot factory is back to his kill all humans plan, and with the power of PSPT, they will put us down. Of course, we win without much effort and leave before the robot can sputter his nonsense. The technician plugs the portable synchrophasotron into the extreme neurotransmitter, allowing it to operate at its maximum potential. He then makes a reference to the Matrix, which our character recognizes, before postulating on how many more there can be. The answer may void pill you. We enter the elevator at the grounds of the tower and go up to the delivery service office. We complain about his son, and he says he will consider the complaint valid before selling us another tape for Henry. We come back a few days later and talk to the manager about his deliveries. The man did in fact put his son on an unscheduled leave, but because he was the only delivery boy, a bunch of packages are left undelivered. We give the cop at the station his 5-year-old donuts. Apu gets 20-year-old shoes for his non-existent body, and Silver gets his vibrating mutant cucumber. The jokes all make sense and tie into information we already know about the characters, except for Silver's. I'm not sure why this was the item specifically given to him when it doesn't relate to anything we know about him, or at least I know about him. Let me know in the comments down below if you do know. After completing our virtuous mission, the delivery manager grants us a bus pass, removing all of its associated fees. This is a nice reward, but it comes a little too late. We're only here after reaching the maximum promotion in each of the 3 jobs on offer. The paltry costs of transportation are the least of our worries now. This event should have either taken place earlier in the promotion series, or grant a more meaningful reward, especially for being this late in the game. In any case, our schedule is finally a bit free thanks to all of the extra cash we farmed from bullying weaker fighters, so I head on over to Mick's old place. Mick's fully digitalized consciousness floats in front of us, but right now, all we can do is repair the gym. Each promotion grants us a conversation with Mick, where we slowly catch him up to the state of the world, along with discussing some of the tech's greater themes, but not in a manner that I find relevant enough to conclude. I haven't talked about fights in a while because there isn't really anything I can add or say, which might be a problem in itself, but I am showing this fight against Prez, an agility-based fighter, because we unlocked our final stamina-based fighting style, Torturer. The different fighting styles are supposed to influence your gameplay due to the differing perks, but there's a bit of design conflict at work here in the skill aspect that prevents them from being an alternative. The Torturer grants us an additional feat slot when compared to the Trapper, and it's this one extra bonus that makes selecting the Trapper a trap in itself. I would recommend expansion of the school system by locking player access to special moves, which can only be used if you commit to that school in order to meaningfully differentiate them from one another. After winning the fight, Uncle Barry congratulates us as we rise up in the ranks, but more importantly he informs us that one of the competitors in the league is cheating, and asks us to talk to his boy, Barry Jr. We approach the boy in the abandoned warehouse, and in exchange for his help, he asks us for a favor in return. His father Bobo is going off at night and acting almost serious. Our job is to figure out what he's up to. So we take a trip to his farm, before tailing him around the entire city. After several thousand steps, we find ourselves outside of Henry's house. Overhearing the conversation inside, we become worried for Henry's life, and barge in. Except the violent conflict was actually just the 2 of them watching JoJo. After clearing the air, we report ourselves finding Bobo watching Japanese cartoons to his son. Drops of sweat puddle at Bobo Jr.'s feet, and mine too, as he hears the terrible news. He forces us to vow that Bobo is up to something far less nefarious before handing us the goods. We take the box of junk home, but on the way back, we enter a meet cute with some lady also carrying a box of junk. Realizing that we've forgotten to ask for her name, we chase after her. However, in a surprising twist of events, we witness some thugs in cat astronaut helmets kidnapping her before driving off. With our hands full, we take our junk to Uncle Barry and inform him about the situation. Uncle Barry's at first excited, but as we divulge more details, the tone of the conversation does a 180 as he discovers who kidnapped the woman. Those figures in the cow helmets are the feds, and there's nothing we can do about it except forget she even existed. Before we can leave his office, a voice from the ether speaks out, yet neither of us are able to pinpoint who it belonged to, if those words were even spoken in the first place. The voice waits until we've conveniently arrived back at our garage before speaking to us once more. The voice asks us if we're able to read, but we prefer retro movies instead. The voice on the phone then questions our identity and asks for a person named Juliet. We inform the voice about her situation. This only prompts the lady to question who we are. In order to answer our questions, we grant her access to her GPP chip without any questions of our own, even though we don't know what, if any, consequences would arise from this. Luckily, we never set a password ourselves. Without this information, she will instead run our number through her database before contacting us in the future. With some free time, we finish our renovation of Mick's place. At Emmett's place, we ask if he can make a body for Mick, but he can't because he's too busy making a body for Mick. This is where we learn that Emmett can time travel, and our character realizes that this should in fact make him an omnipotent god. But of course, he invokes the first rule of time travel and forces the conversation along. In exchange for Mick's body, he wants us to deliver some GPP chips to the nightclub manager. We ask to see the manager, and in a misunderstanding, the man calls for the guards. Luckily, we manage to de-escalate the situation by invoking Emmett's name. With the task at hand completed, Emmett hands us the body, and we insert Mick inside. With the body found, he has further plans for this location and hopes for us to turn it into a gym focused on improving the future generations. We win our next fight, and Uncle Barry congratulates us, but more importantly, he wants to watch a detective movie. Of course, we head to Henry's and find him and Bobo watching Ruth's fitness workout tapes, as anime is only on Wednesdays. Henry hands us the movie we desire, and Barry's as delighted as he can be. The first day of training arrives. Mechanically, it's pretty simple. You just maintain a high reputation, and then select whatever moves keep them in a good mood until the allotted time elapses. Completion rewards us with some reputation point and more importantly, money. This starts off paltry, but as our rep increases, so do the attendees and generated revenue. The additional attendees come from their own side quests where you beat other people up as Mick drags you through an in-universe hangover reference. We win our next fight, and Uncle Barry returns us the film we gave him. His thoughts were not so kind towards the movie. We return to Henry's house and find him watching the version of The Lion King not ruined by Jon Favreau with Ruth. He was the only one who showed up to one of her fitness classes, and it was history from there. Wholesome Keanu Big Chungus 100. Feeling a bit unsatiated, we head on over to Apu's store, and in a twist of events, we meet a holographic Juliet. Seeing her in this form only confirms her ill-met fate. Over at the police station, we complete our studying of the laws, even though the only ones we actually need to know are 1. The rule of the fist, and 2. Whoever has a higher GPP in a conflict is the one in the right. Ready to protect and serve, the Holo Cop takes us further inside before granting us our outfit. Of course, we are then assigned with only the most pressing of tasks, such as filing paperwork and completing documents. Of course, we also have much more action-oriented works, such as patrolling the streets in an intimidating manner. As we gain more reputation, we will then be tasked with solving an issue in the city. This is just another method to generate money while being the faction opposed to Mick. Luckily, nothing is stopping us from reaping the benefits from both jobs. We win our next fight, and of course, Uncle Barry wants some celebration donuts. We oblige and head on over to Apu's store, only to find ourselves in the middle of a resistance raid. Winky Tinky gets his antenna bent, but the other members stole the rest of the seashells during our battle. Seashells are an interesting choice of an item to steal, but apparently in this world, seashells replace toilet paper. However, if our character didn't know this, it makes me question, what has our character been using instead? Our mom calls us to inform us about her constant headaches. The candy from Apu's shop has not been sufficient, and somehow we must resolve the issue. We, of course, mention this to Apu, and in a behavior uncharacteristic of him, he gives us some earplugs for free. Apparently, they help his brother, Jay, sleep like a baby. We give our mom the earplugs, and the issue is resolved. Chappie's the top opponent in the 2nd division, but because of how league fights work, this is the 3rd time I'm putting him down. With this, we earn our way into the 3rd division and are just that much closer to the upper city. Although this is a time to celebrate, I do have a nitpick with this occasion, and that is Chaffee wasn't really a boss. There was no build up to the bout or any other sort of fanfare, and that's because the game treats him as just another fighter. Treating Chaffee this way is fine, but the fact that there isn't a boss we need to overcome like Zangief from the previous game weakens the fighting fantasy just a bit. Kazuma Kiryu is our first opponent in this 3rd division, and he's no joke. Agility-based dodges are the best form of defense in this game as it wastes resources from the enemy while shielding you from all damage. A lot of this chapter for me was continuing the established loop of working training and then fighting grind, with Mick and the police missions slotted in to break up some of the monotony. I'm not going to cover them in any detail because these lean more into being reference-filled narratives, and me summarizing meme conversations is already taking out a lot of the game's charm. They also don't add any mechanics I can discuss, and thus are best left up for you to experience yourselves. Undercover Robot is our next opponent, and although this man has woken up on the inside, it turns out that he is not actually a human. Barry expels the robot from the league and knocks out 2 stones with 1 bird, as this was also the opponent suspected of cheating. Why this robot is even fighting or cheating is unknown to us. It comes to our mind at first, but Uncle Barry forces us to head on over to the junkyard. He is more up to date on the goings-on of the world, and we know that the Russian mafia is up to no good. We just don't know what exactly they are doing. Krishik gives up the game by referencing Evanescence. We head on over to the robot factory, but are too late in saving the robot, letting him become nothing. On the ground lies a fake mask, the only proof left of its pitiful existence. We take it over to Uncle Barry, but are unable to do anything with it for now. However, there are still other mysteries for us to uncover. We enter the sewer system at night and establish an encrypted audio channel with Carla. She was unable to find any relevant information about us from our GPV number, but that's because it didn't exist until what I can only guess is several months ago. How much time has passed in universe is never really established, and I think bringing back the D system from the previous title as a running total of how much time we've used could help in providing that missing context. Speaking of, we fill in some context for Carla by telling her about the moment that we saw hologram Juliet. This information causes her to exclaim a statement about how the Resistance is in danger. Being in the sewers, chasing some Resistance members right now, we ask Carla about the 10 wrapped men. Apparently though, these Resistance members have nothing to do with her. We catch up to the 2 of the Resistance members and force Edgar to spill the beans about Tyler by threatening to take off his hat. With the not-so-secret base location revealed, we meet Tyler. Tyler questions the state of the world. The police only think about themselves. Animals rule the world, and we're eating slime for lunch. When you think about it, these conditions are ridiculous, are they not? This absurdity is what drives his actions. He simply does stuff because they are what he could consider fun. Another piece of information that we are not privy to earlier is how they aren't the Resistance, and instead, the postmodern fake Resistance. With Carla's presence, this means that there is another, more legitimate Resistance. This leads us to ask, how is the Resistance even resisting? We haven't heard about, or even felt their existence impact any of their actions thus far. In fact, Tyler mentioned how animals rule the world. This takes us back to the line point from our dreams, but we haven't seen it or anything resembling it since. Regardless, the seashells which we came for were scattered all over the city due to the goons being scared, thus we're off to collect them. Also, the goal completion message of not morons but postmodernists is beyond base and something I want to make sure I point out. We collect the seashells from all over the city. At each location, we talk to Carla and fill in more details about our life. In fact, it's not until now that our character learns her name. Carla is in the Resistance to make sure the world is a better place. A generic, albeit noble cause. Apu receives his missing seashell boxes, but will only pay us if we collect the other 6. We also receive Uncle Barry's donuts, although I don't know if you'd be interested in them right now. Henry wakes us up from a long nap. Apparently our mom collapsed at home and is now at the hospital. We arrive as soon as possible and learn that her condition is critical, requiring surgery immediately. However, because she doesn't have any insurance on her own, the debt can only be repaid if we ask for help from our employer. Employer-based insurance sure is an excellent system. Aside from the obvious commentary, this major life event forces us to choose between Mick and the police force. Committing to either faction locks you out of the other, making this one of the only choices in the game that actually matters. We are victorious against Mr. Cyborg, but instead of throwing his usual donut party, Uncle Barry gets all sentimental on us as he talks about how the city has changed throughout the years. He can buy anything his heart desires, but he can't buy a slice of pizza. That's why it's a good thing that we know how Casey used to own a pizzeria, thus he is where we head. There, we inform him about how Uncle Barry misses the location, and although Casey doesn't remember Uncle Barry exactly, hands us some pizza anyways. After some training, we talk to Mick and confirm that we will continue to rebuild his gym and become a sensei in the future. We finish up a training session with the boys, but Mick has an announcement to make. Over the past few days, the gang has been posting flyers all over the city asking for financial support. Thanks to their efforts, they successfully collected half the amount we needed for our mom's operation. It doesn't even end there. Mick talked it over with the boys, and they are all pitching in to cover the other half as a thanks for all of my efforts. With this, I am now recognized as a sensei, and am on my way to becoming a Jedi Master. While I won't cover the events that led up to me becoming a master due to the previously stated reason, I will mention that we received the meditation mat as the final reward. It's just barely useful enough of an item for the end of the game. The other thing I want to touch on is that I think the story could have been developed further and concluded in a stronger manner thematically. Sure, Mick says I become a master, but because I didn't do anything epic besides opening a gym, the title and responsibility of master doesn't feel as deserved as it should. However, I do want to give the game credit where it's due. Mick's entire storyline does deal with how GPP doesn't make you a good person, which ties into the core themes of the game. Making friends, helping people out, and contributing to society in a constructive manner are what makes a person truly good. With the funds procured, we return to the hospital after our mother's surgery. As the anesthesia starts to wear off, she whispers words from the past. The sparse phrases don't make much sense to the doctor or our character, but make much more sense if you played the previous game. Before we are able to leave, the doctor provides us with Adriana's old chip. It's similar to the current GPP modules, but a much earlier version. With our mother awake and back home, we confirm her well-being. Back to a more preppy version of herself, she showers us with thanks and support for what we have accomplished as a fighter. She even tells a sweet little story of how our father met our mother through his friendship with her brother, Roy. In any case, we still ask about the Mark I GPP chip found in her head. Adriana vehemently opposes all sorts of body modifications, so she has no knowledge of the device. Our mother also states that she hasn't felt very good for the last 16 years. This is when the chip was first installed, but it is curious that she had no idea of its existence in the first place. We also ask her about Roy, and if you wish to know more about him, go play the previous game or watch my last video. Our final question before we let her rest is to ask her about a phrase she uttered shortly before waking up. Fluffy scum, get out. Doesn't trigger any specific memories from her, but is a good guess that she's talking about our father's pet cat. It's been a long day, so we head on over to Apu's shop in order to catch a bite to eat. Unfortunately, as we arrive, we witness Winky Tinky in conflict with a man wearing cardboard box armor. The cardboard man spouts out the hard truths and claims that they were lied to. Foil doesn't protect against 5G, a lie. Living in the sewers being cool, another lie. Winky Tinky claims that Lulu has been brainwashed, repeating memorized lines like an NPC. We interfere and choose to side with the cardboard warrior. Winky Tinky fights us, but we finish him before the halfway point of round 1. The cardboard warrior chastises Winky Tinky for losing before claiming that an epic storm is brewing. Unfortunately for the cardboard warrior, 5 years of development was not enough for Lazy Bear Games to make this dude a walking animation. For those purely listening in, no, this is not me making a joke. The game breaks the fourth wall here, and in this game I'm totally okay with it. We return the 6 missing seashell boxes to Apu, and he rewards us with a hefty $300 to fill out our empty pockets. Money is a resource we always need more of IRL and in this game. However, as I try to work my shift as an expert bender, Krisha stops us. He's heard the news of us becoming wrapped up with the crimes of some Mick fellow, and because of such, we are no longer able to work here. This restriction applies to all the previous tier jobs, and the alternative police job as well. I liked this restriction quite a bit. It's what I hoped what would have happened earlier whenever we reached max reputation in a faction. Lucky for us, mentoring students as a sensei pays well enough. With our financial situation solved, there's not much we can do at this time that isn't investigating our mother's old GPP chip. Emmett is shocked upon witnessing the old chip, but he tries to cover up his reaction by claiming that he has no idea what it even is, even though we know that him not holding this knowledge is an impossibility. We push him on this front, but he doesn't give up the info. Talking with Gladys also yields no results. Our search for information takes us back to the hospital. The doctor informs us that some people in the city think that they do not need to pay their debts. This is of course unacceptable, and so he hands us some Pharmacom black spots to hand out. I'm a bit surprised that the doctor didn't make us beat them up to send them back to the hospital, but I suppose if that they aren't paying already, they would just choose not to pay again. At the junkyard, we hand the black spot to not Grisha, not Dynamo, but to the metal dog. Our next victim that receives the black spot is Rutger Hauer, aka some blind Vietnam War vet hobo living in the ghetto. The final box spot goes to some guy in a Hawaiian shirt. With the targets now marked, he'll be unable to sleep at night peacefully. Truly, a great success for Pharmacom. We question why a dog needed a block spot, but surprisingly enough, he doesn't give us that confidential patient doctor info. To show thanks for our heroic task, the dog will now tune the parameters of Dr. Feelgood to help restore our health much faster. We thank him for that, but are a bit confused as we thought that Dr. Feelgood belonged to Silver. Unfortunately, we learned that his economic situation is dire. Too real. Like and subscribe. Speaking of, we head to Silver's gym to talk to the man himself. This is where we engage with some training with gold. This mechanic allows us to spend some time, energy, hunger, and mood in order to remove the tonus cost from a specific move for a few days. I like the idea of this mechanic. However, I never found it useful due to never running out of tonus in the first place. If the tonus costs on moves are higher, or if the total tonus pool is limited, then this mechanic could provide a huge boon for a fight. We head on over to Uncle Bear's office after resting up and deliver him a slice of cosmic pizza. After questioning how we obtained such an item, he thanks us for reminding him of the good old days. Seeing Uncle Barry indulge in a slice makes us want one for ourselves, and so I head back to the sewers. However, as we enter, a familiar cardboard warrior gets in our way. After defeating the Prologue, the false resistance arrives on the scene. Tyler rebukes the cardboard warrior's territorial claim, leading to the cardboard warrior to threaten the tinfoil goons with a Wi-Fi router. From the shadows, Huey makes his grand return. It was him that convinced Lulu to turn against the resistance, for he wishes to resist the resistance. Unfortunately for him, they aren't the resistance, they are the false resistance. With Huey's plans dashed, the false resistance takes their leave as Casey fetches us. Casey is obviously confused about the cardboard warrior. We explain to him how the artist couldn't even bother to give the cardboard warrior a walk animation, and then we hit him with the gritty. Casey takes us back into his little hovel, and after enjoying a slice of pizza, we talk to Master Bill. He recites multiple events from his life, which may or may not have been movie references. The events that interest our character the most, though, is Casey's retelling of her father's story. Of course, if you played the first game or watched my previous video, the events of her father are a known quantity. The more interesting point of discussion is that no one knows what happened to him after the tournament. He just vanished into thin air when his people needed him the most. Casey then makes fun of us for thinking too hard about his story, because the only thing that matters is that our old man was a good person and a great fighter. Cosmic Pizza is the real reward for reaching this point. We will no longer need to munch on Bobo's slime sandwiches or prepare as Apu's meal kits if we wish to satiate our hunger. Too bad that this is a little too late, as money is no longer a factor at play. In the middle of training some kids, Henry gives us a call. It turns out that he's making progress with Ruth, and wants to get in shape alongside her. Thus, he requests if we have some spare equipment we can use. We return home, but what's this? We discover Apu flirting with our mother. It turns out that they are now together as Apu fulfills the emotional vacancy in Adriana's heart. This is a complicated situation, but with all the information we know, it is understandable from both of their perspectives at the end of the day. Although, our character does not get any of the complexities since he's been punched in the head far too many times. To let off some steam, we head on over to Silver's gym and spar. Silver wants to know what the issue is, and so we tell him, through a metaphor. Silver responds as well as he could in this situation, and our character understands what needs to be done. Henry follows up his call from earlier and states that the equipment is no longer needed. Instead, he switches the conversation up and asks us how we're doing. We respond the only way we can, with a goodbye. We confront Apu at a shop, but his brother Jay emerges from the back room. With a strength of 42, Jay is the strongest opponent we faced thus far, and he actually manages to put us down. Although we lost, it is an odd choice that the outcome of this fight doesn't matter. Regardless if we win or lose, we are sent back to our couch at Mix with no chance for a rematch. After resting up, we head back to Apu's shop, but in a shocking twist of events, Jay tells us that someone actually stole Apu. We investigate the puddle at the scene of the crime and take our evidence over to Bobo. We force him to cooperate, which leads him to telling us that we should take a look at the sewers. Unfortunately, this is the end of Apu's saga. Perhaps not for what the game provides, but the story that our character and I know. Once we hit a certain section in the story, all non-essential content is locked from us. It makes sense story-wise, but not mechanically. If access to the city was locked, then it would make more sense. But nope, you can still access the entire city, which makes it a tad confusing. It's not a big deal to me, but it is unfortunate how all my saves were either way too early on or after that event horizon. A little after we win this match against Jax, the #1 fighter in the 3rd Division League, is when that exact lock happens. Oh, I do want to mention that fighting certain school warriors are pretty neat to fight because of how much damage is dealt over the short amount of time. The school might not be good, but it definitely succeeds at fulfilling that explosive fantasy. With the world at our feet, Uncle Barry congratulates us on our success. With 9,000 good person points, we have earned the right to travel up to the upper city. Wishing to continue the celebrations, Uncle Barry wants some donuts. However, every time we've done so, he hasn't reciprocated those feelings when we return. So we poke at the obvious holes in his story. Uncle Barry doesn't beat around the bush. Donuts is a password for the janitor that works at Apu's shop, and he has something important for him. We agree to complete this one last task before our ascension. I expected the janitor to have some sort of interaction, primarily through some sort of side activity, or perhaps even further on in Apu's quest, but him being some sort of intel manager was not on my cards. We asked Trey for some donuts, and realized that Uncle Barry was not kidding when he said this man was deaf. The janitor questions our knowledge of the password, and we respond appropriately. The man then asks us how our uncle knows the password. We start to explain, but decide not to waste words on some pointless explanation, and instead start asking some questions of our own. That important item is an old GPP chip that belonged to his dead partner, Philip Kindred Dick. He was the best cop this town ever saw, but only this chip remained after he got caught up in some dangerous business. Well, this information starts to explain the good detective's memory issues, but it does make me want to know how Dick is still alive. After a short interrogation, the janitor hands us the chip, and we hand it over to Uncle Barry. His reason for wanting the chip is to know what the dead cop knew, but he has no idea how to currently access it. The dead cop is also not so dead, but our character doesn't seem to piece this together. I ask Lil Bobo for some help since he has experience in illegal GPP transfers for fights, but he clarifies that there is a difference between hacking the software the chip runs on and hacking the physical hardware itself. Even though the lines in the game are blurred for story purposes, this tracks even in real life. Just because I can compile code for my CPU to run doesn't mean I know how to mess with the actual transistors. Since Lil Bobo can't help us, our character reckons that Carla can. I assume that since Emmett refused to provide any aid previously, along with him being the creator of the technology, it wouldn't make any sense for us to take such a device to that man. Our garage is the safest location we know of, and thus contact Carla there. After some small talk, we inform her of our plans. She suggests that instead of opening it up, we could try scanning it with a memory scan device. Unfortunately, we don't remember seeing one of those at Apu's shop, meaning we'll have to assemble one ourselves. Dynamo fulfills the requirements of an experienced mechanic, and can build the scanner device. However, she only builds the device after I take care of a dancing T-801 that got a little rowdy while Grisha is away. Of course, the T-801 isn't any regular old opponent. He can only be calmed down with a mojito. Lil Bobo is the software expert, but he's also up to his own shenanigans. After learning about how the slimes are actually intelligent creatures, he wants to set them free while his father is still gone. We clear the blockage for him real quick, and Lil Bobo hands us a USB with the code on it. With Emmett out of the room, we ask GLaDOS for a scanning algo. She obviously asks us what it's for, and since we can't tell her the truth, lie that it's for a spoiled milk carton. She doesn't believe the story, but doesn't care. She'll hand us the algo if, in turn, we find her a robot boyfriend. We come back with the head of the robot who wished to kill all humans, and he's sufficient enough. With all of the parts, Carla guides us through the fire and flames that building such a complicated device generates. After many hours, perhaps even days, the struggle ends and the arduous task is completed. The power to scan memories from others is powerful, and one that we will use beyond the extent Uncle Barry might desire. Our first abuse of power is getting the truth out of Silver. In his memories, our father was oddly rude, unlike how we operated him in the previous game. However, since it is Silver's memories, it could be tainted because that's how we registered that experience. Also, knowing this experience should majorly change our interactions with Silver in the future, but unfortunately for him, the story's scope has expanded beyond his reach. At the police station, we go through 3 visions, each building on the relationship between Martin, the not yet Robocop, and Dick. While it initially starts off hostile, it blossoms into something real. While those memories serve to build up the characters, the 4th memory is the most important one for our story. Dick receives a phone call from Pharmacom right when Dynamo walks in looking for her missing boyfriend. Dick tries his best to get her to go through the proper channels, but after not hearing back from them, Dynamo convinces Dick to take a look. The trail ends here for now, but there are clues that pick up at the club. We take a detour to Bobo's farm, and find him furious over what Lil Bobo has done. This memory is a little crazy, because it's here that I see the return of Line Punk, but he's hidden away in the shadows. It's also here that we learn of the relationship between him and Bobo. Lion Punk forces Bobo to operate this trailer park as a farm, a slime farm. Bobo questions their origins, and we find out that the slimes are worms that mutated from being fed chemical waste. Although courteous in his explanation, Lion Punk reveals his true intentions by reminding Bobo to not ask him such unnecessary questions due to Bobo's debt to his master. Even though Lil Bobo has his gripes, it turns out Bobo Sr. might be a victim as well. The memory at the delivery office helps flesh out the identities of the delivery boy and manager a bit more. In it, we learn that Lion Punk had his hand in creating the delivery business as well. Grisha is back at the junkyard, and in trying to come up with a good excuse for why we are here, suggests that we wish to know him better, and thus ask him who this mysterious boss he is referring to is. It turns out that their boss is a robo-dog. Lion Punk shows himself once more, and we learn that the dog's name is Borya, the boss of the Russian mafia. His consciousness was simply transferred to a different body. This is who the doctor that worked for Pharmacom was referring to earlier in the story. Our detour is over, and we head on over to the club. The story of Dick unravels even further. He found the man whose face matches the picture given to him by Dynamo, but as we ask him some questions, deduce that the man seems to be suffering from some sort of amnesia. We aren't done with our clubbing night out and question the manager about some poisoned noodles. It turns out that Lion Punk even has his hands here. The new GPP chips are far too weak, and he wants the masses to consume some sort of power juice that increase the efficiency of the new chips. Being an omnipotent god, we suck up to Emmett as he talks down to us like a dog. We have to convince ourselves to not beat him up as we take a look into the past. Dick interrogates Emmett about his new GPP chips, but keeps the focus on the man's missing memory and the gravity of its nature. We follow the trail and take the elevator up to a damaged apartment in the tower. We flash back. Dick walks through the unlocked door only to find Carl tied to a chair. Dick is barely able to wrap his mind around the situation at hand before the police come knocking at the door. Realizing he was set up, Dick channels his inner assassin before leaping across the apartment rooftops. For a location that we barely spend any time at, I'm impressed at the attention of detail that was given to this map as well. The junkyard holds the answer to why Dick found that broken loader part, for it's there that he finds a plate that is a perfect match with what he found at the crime scene. However, since he no longer has any police access as a fugitive, he can only call on the one person he trusts the most, Martin. He runs the code and figures out that the loader's shipment was sent to Bobo's slime farm. Once on site, we don't waste any time. The flashback begins. The leaders of the city are all gathered in one location as Lion Punk stands opposite to them. Dick is also here, but he stays behind the covers of a slime barrel. Lion Punk steps into the light and explains why they are all gathered here. The head of the Noodle Club questions why this physical meeting even needed to take place if his master wasn't here. Lion Punk pulls out his ray gun, and Thanos snaps the man in response. Or at least that's what the situation looked like on a surface level. Lion Punk continues to flip the script by bringing out a hollow version of the man. Somehow, his boss discovered a way to work with memories, truly the work of an evil genius. Another masked individual brings in Dynamo as the hostage, hoping to convince Borya to lend Lion Punk the cooperation of the Russian mafia. Borya isn't having it even though Dynamo surrenders. Unfortunately for Dick, Dynamo spills the beans that the police force work for Lion Punk anyways. Dick's bad luck doesn't end there, as Pharmacom decides this is the perfect moment to give him a call. Dick makes his grand entrance announcing how all of these criminals are under arrest. Lion Punk doesn't have time to play games and shoots Dick with his ray gun. However, Martin was secretly there the whole time. In a heroic feat, he jumps out from underneath the tarp and sacrifices his body and mind, all in the hopes of letting Dick run. Lion Punk doesn't shoot a second shot for some reason. Dick capitalizes on this moment and escapes from the warehouse. Still in hot pursuit, we continue the flashback to the ghettos. Somehow, the Holocop managed to already catch up to Dick. The Holocop then tries to convince Dick that he's his friend. This brings up an interesting conversation. Who is someone really? Is the Holocop really the same person just because he has the shared memories and experiences of the individual named Martin? Does he even have a consciousness or have the ability to learn and process new information through our senses and emotions? Dick realizes that he's trapped and cannot escape. He refuses to become a hollow upon death and pulls a chip right out of his brain. With this, we now know the mystery behind the bloody chip, and take our findings back to Uncle Barry, who was suspiciously missing from any of the flashbacks considering his high status in the city. The answer to that question is not kept for long. It turns out, Dick was Uncle Barry this entire time. Taking out the chip caused him to lose most of his memories for the past 8 years, but thanks to our passion for fighting, he became inspired enough to create the Uncle Barry persona. Of course, the questions of how Dick obtained the resources to accomplish all of this, along with how much time has passed since we first met him, goes unanswered. Instead, Dick focuses our attention into stopping the big bad in charge of this operation. However, before he can go into any further detail, he learns that the feds are already closing in on 2 locations, here and the house located in the southwest section of the city. We question how they could have tracked us this fast, and it turns out it's because we never threw out Dick's police badge when he told us to. A solid callback and consequence of our character's inaction. It also makes the flashbacks feel less bad since it starts to wrap up multiple story elements together. Having Dick have his own story in the past and then continuing it in parallel because of our character also makes us a more active participant in the world. We dash back home, but instead of finding our mom, we find Lion Punk. Just as he's about to shoot us down, a voice yells for us to get down. Carla is actually a car and breaks through our door to save us from hollow death. As we make our escape out of the city and towards the base of the resistance, Carla catches us up to speed. Unknown to us, outside the walls of the city, a catastrophe occurred, displacing most of the world. All that was left outside the city was turned into a desolate wasteland, and all that's inside is controlled by the corporation. Unfortunately, although our character wishes to go back to save his mother, Carla doesn't slow down because trying to save Adriana at this point would only lead us into a trap. Most of this storyline tracks, but I wish we got more hints about the war that took place and what lay outside the city. I don't need to know any hard details, but just enough to start speculating that something is off about the outside world. There's no indication or clue that I picked up on that would have led me to believe that the entire world was destroyed in a nuclear holocaust. We soon arrive at the Resistance headquarters. Carla is unable to travel much further in, but assures us that Frank and the Resistance leader will take care of us. After taking a few steps inside, Casey shows up as our guide. We're a little surprised as we enter the bar, but even though they're on the brink of extinction, Casey is right when he says everyone still needs a place and time to relax. It's here that our uncle makes his grand entrance and reveals himself as the leader of the Resistance. After a back and forth with Casey, he eventually begins to fill us in on the details of the evil genius we need to take care of. I'm glad to see that he also didn't disappear like our father at the end of the previous game. He then goes over the events of the previous game and how our father became the Dark Fist to take down the evil genius all those years ago. That's right, this entire time, Fluffy, our father's pet cat, was behind all of this. Go watch my previous video for the full context. However, because our uncle was there when our father fought against a red-eyed man, he does have knowledge we don't hold. In the first game, as the red-eyed man revealed himself being our father's father, our character broke the fourth wall and stared directly at the player. Instead, in order to continue on the story, they took out the fourth wall break and expanded upon what happened next. From out of nowhere, Fluffy showed up on the island and positioned himself behind our father. From there, Fluffy then deployed a smoke bomb and stuck a needle in our dad's neck in order to knock him out. Our dad's father witnessed the event and damns the cat before opening up a portal and traveling through it. Our uncle is rightfully confused. It was then that the catastrophe occurred, leaving our uncle to spend the last 20 years resisting with Frank's help. Who is Frank is the prevailing question now on our mind, and as we enter the control room, his identity is revealed. Frank is actually a cybernetic dolphin whose mind is connected directly to the internet, thus making him the best hacker in the world. Frank also happens to be the name of our father's and our father's brother's uncle. Frank's abilities allow him to hack into the upper city and put into motion his plan, Catharsis. Of course, we question how hacking an entire city is possible, but it turns out that the upper city is actually a virtual reality program where our father is being held. Frank takes a memory dump of our mind and beams us up. One of the largest issues I have with this story beat is that the upper city is actually just a virtual reality program. Even if we set his mind free, what will happen to his physical body? Wouldn't Fluffy still be in possession of it, making our efforts pointless for now? In any case, as we ascend into the upper city, Fluffy goads us through a call referencing the Metal Gear Codec screen. He claims that we will never be able to make the necessary tough choices we need to. We will be unable to sacrifice the ones we love, even though the only people we care about is our mom, who he kidnapped, and our father, who he also kidnapped. Also, upon seeing the obvious Kojima references, something clicked in my mind, and because of how all the events have unfolded thus far, Punch Club 2 really could have been written by Kojima. Also, I'm kind of disappointed by the fact that the upper city isn't an actual city. This would have been the most opportune time to have introduced a second location that could freshen up the gameplay loop. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a budget and or time constraint issue though. We continue forward and meet the delivery boy. This is where the fight menu receives a few modifications. Because we've hacked ourselves into the upper city, we have the ability to adjust all of our stat points around. In addition to this, we also gain access to every single other fighting style during each round. Conceptually, this is pretty cool because it's like a debug room. Unfortunately, because this is the end of the game, having this shoved into the narrative weakens the impact of your dedication to previous training sessions. Also, having access to every combat trick in the game is a bit overwhelming to process. I did a quick run through of each of the abilities, and there's a lot of complexity that unfortunately never manifests for most fights in the game. And just for fun, I decided to mess around with our character's build for this first fight against the delivery boy. It went better than expected, but we still lost in the end. Frank loads up our previous memory dump, and the game is cognizant of the fact that we are re-entering, and thus skips the extraneous dialogue with Fluffy. I untroll my build and take down the delivery boy. Silver, Gold, is our next opponent, and it's here that he lets out his true feelings. We've always belittled him, even though the only thing he ever wanted to be was friends with cool guys like us. Unfortunately, his obsession for soda cannot stop us. Bobo Jr. makes his appearance as the third fighter. We confront him for his appearance here, but it turns out that Fluffy took his father. Even though he hates him, he is still family at the end of it all. Also, being digitized, turned into Pac-Man, and being forced to eat his own crop forever is a pretty terrible fate. Bobo Jr. puts up a good fight, but still goes down. Finally, Fluffy makes his appearance. He summons an NES controller and the giant robot that has all of the skills from the greatest fighters who are downloaded onto it. The BF Giant Robot 9000 fight is where all the fighting mechanics are taken to the extreme. With the 99 stamina, this fight is a grindfest, and thus we are forced to choose moves that are more conservative when it comes to energy expansion. Something that I didn't really have to do for most fights up until now. I understand that I am using a stamina focused build, but even against other stamina focused fighters, I never had to micromanage my moves. Besides that, the robot goes down without a hitch. However, it's not down for the count. Even though we destroyed its shield, it stands up for another bout. This time, the robot focuses on maximizing its damage output and switches to a build with 99 points distributed into strength. This is the easiest phase of the fight, as blocking reduces most of the damage output. Dodging these attacks might make this fight even easier because you will just exhaust the bot's energy reserves that much faster. To me, this indicates that strength needs to do more damage. If the combat worked like rock paper scissors, then damage number balance would be less of a problem. But since the game wants all fighting styles to be able to counter each other, then strength fighting classes need that extra boost. Otherwise, focusing on stamina with strength as a secondary becomes the obvious conclusion. Agility, agility, agility. Oh man, I complained about how much better this school is in comparison to the others just because of dodging, and this fight reinforces my viewpoint. Mind you, I'm okay with dodges being broken, it's just that the agility stat itself should be better implemented into the other fighting classes because initiative is pretty much a useless mechanic. Not that it's useless to include, but it's just such a minor factor that you can ultimately ignore it if you aren't focused on agility. I do like what it is trying to do though. Moves simply don't cost enough initiative. However, if you start increasing initiative costs of other moves, agility will become that much stronger. There are moves such as Twister that are unlocked that reduce the chance to dodge this blow. However, what that reduced chance isn't made clear. If, in addition to initiative, agility also influenced the hit chance of every move, including blocks and dodges, that would make management of each of the three stats more balanced to one another. Also, make those chances visible and clear to the player, so it isn't just guesswork. Since I'm here, I'll just go ahead and talk about a bunch of other game mechanics. Mastery is a game mechanic that I never talked about because it's pretty much useless, like completely. I can guess what it does, but I don't know what it's supposed to do for a fact. Another useless mechanic are the non-existent differences between kicks and punches. Different types of dodges or blocks being more effective against kicks or punches would help in making the round-to-round micromanagement more vital. And no, these options being included in the endgame feats for stamina is not a good substitute. There is also the mechanic of fighters being pushed left or right towards the edges of the fighting ring. Pushing a fighter closer to the edge allows you to get in more hits overall by preventing dodges or blocks, or at least that's what I think it does. This was supposed to be the trapper fighting style strength, as you unlocked moves that had greater chance of pushing the enemy back, but those only constituted a few scant moves and are overall weaker than your other options, making them useless after a few more unlocks. I really like the idea of this mechanic as it makes the actual fight a bit more dynamic. It's just that this mechanic is never fully explored. Part of the reason some of these mechanics can be ignored is because the game never explains any of them. I didn't even find a menu in the game to help explain all of these systems. If I had to propose an overarching system to fix most of these issues, it would be to focus on the gameplay styles of the schools themselves, rather than having the stats dictate the school you choose. Sure, certain schools should lend themselves to certain stats better, but being locked into a certain move and perk pool while having to manage the stats then would help in making each fight more diverse. With predetermined strengths and weaknesses, it would then be up to how you manage the fighter's stats to best maximize the value of that school when compared to every other fighter. Now, let's return to what's been happening on screen. If you've been watching the fight occurring in the background, you'll notice that it's not even close. Luckily, the game doesn't waste our time. Mr. Wizard gives us the cheat codes to skip the 3 fights we've previously won. Unfortunately, the game gives us 3 pity points for our stats every time we lose. I think this is done so we aren't hard stuck at any of these fights, but I don't appreciate being forced to distribute them. It kind of takes out some of the wind behind our sails. Anyways, 5 deaths and 1 hour later, we take down the Iron Giant. Yes, seriously, it took me almost an hour trying this fight just to get through it. That isn't a complaint for this fight. It's just more indicative of how easy the game was up until now. Upon our victory, Fluffy retreats through a white door. He confronts us on his spinning chair. The entire back wall is covered in monitors. On them, Fluffy plays the hundreds of versions of us that have reached this stage previously. We question his motives and learn that the reason Fluffy has done all of this is because of our father's medallion, the same one that was the entire focus of the previous game, but was only mentioned in this one through a throwaway line before it became the most important thing of all time. In any case, we take several steps forward and stumble upon our father. He's chained to a circular machine where he's been forced into an endless battle. Somehow, the doorway took us out of the virtual upper city and into the real world. At least, this clears up the issue of our father's physical body being missing. We wish to turn off the power and free our father from his endless endeavor. However, Fluffy claims that because our father has been stuck in that seat for the past 20 years, if we shut down the power, he will die. Our character picks Fluffy up and chastises the cat. The scene references events from the previous game, but unlike in that one, this act doesn't get Fluffy to stop his act. Although I suppose it technically didn't stop him in the last game either. With this, we have 2 choices: save the whole city by shutting down the power, or keep our father alive, even though he struggles in the virtual world. I mean, if it has been obvious enough, this entire ending scene is a Matrix reference. We choose not to turn off the upper city. Too bad this isn't an actual proper ending. If our character was fleshed out and had any other goals besides saving his father, something could have been done here to make this kind of real. Luckily, the game designers are smart enough to not waste our time and lets us fast forward through all of the fights. This time, I choose to turn off the upper city. The power turns off and a self-destruction timer is set. Our father wakes up from his stupor and confirms our choice as being correct. And then... aliens. E.T. is here for this planet's champion, but realizes something is wrong with this situation. The medallion is split in half, and the cat has been up to some nefarious deeds. They beam everyone involved into their spaceship before flying off, because the intergalactic tournament is about to start. I mean, when I said that you would not believe what happened in Punch Club 2, I was not joking. I don't even know what to say about this. It's ridiculous. Seriously, I'm struggling to find the appropriate words to describe my thoughts about this matter. I guess if I had to say anything, it's that more elements about the medallion should have at least been hinted at or included in the main story to at least somewhat set the situation up. Everything up until this point had narrative clues that you as a player could build upon to predict what was really at play. Also, the fact that aliens just beam everyone up, and we don't see the resolution of the countdown timer, kind of invalidates the entire story of this game. If aliens were just gonna end up saving our father, then the other ending where we don't shut down the upper city would have been just as valid. In fact, doing nothing, including lounging around on my mom's recliner, would have accomplished the same ending, at least in-universe. If I were to expect anything for Punch Club 3, it'd be for them to please wrap up the story of these characters. If the next game comes out in 2026, it will have been 10 years since the first game, and I think players of it deserve a proper resolution. I'm sure they'll expand upon the mechanics as well, but I need to know what happens. Steam reviews allow anyone to post if they've played the game, and as you might expect, this means that there are a number of reviews that were written by individuals with a sub-room temperature IQ. I filtered through a few of them, and will go through 2 positive reviews and 2 negative reviews that are solid critiques and give my thoughts on them. Alright, this first review is by Punkala. Edit. Okay, final review after beating the game. I had a blast and recommend the game. Some notes about the last chapter. 1. The last part seems a bit rushed. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. The entire upper city seems, completely unfinished. Like a third of the content had to be cut. Yeah, that's probably referencing the upper city. The final fight is fantastic in its design. However, 3. Please don't give pity points to be distributed to stats if I fail a couple of times. I agree, the final fight's pretty good. I do wish the other fights in the games were just as difficult as this one though, because you actually had to switch out your moves and try to counter what the enemy was doing. And I agree, the pity points were really annoying. Instead, let me do what I've been doing the whole time, train. Just allow the player to train moves and the stats before diving into cyberspace. Actually, you know what? This is a really good point. Having some sort of cyber training area would definitely just like help mitigate this entire system. I found the pity points patronizing because the second phase has a lot of luck to it, as you need to use a dodging style. Funnily enough, the strength fight was the easiest. I guess if you have to rely on dodging, it's a lot of luck compared to just blocking all of the attacks. So maybe I was wrong, maybe dodging is harder. Well, I don't know, I feel dodging is like completely broken. 4. The story falls into a bit of the classic trap in story writing. Not every story has to be about saving the world. The story would work better if the villain was just the leader of mafia operating the city. We saw the Matrix references and it would still work. The story's talking about the story is a little bit of a mess because it's a total meme. Like this one, the leader of a mafia operating the city was kind of like, if you want more a grounded story, the first one definitely fit that. I guess you didn't have to go completely overboard with, you know, Fluffy taking over the world. And then aliens, that is a little over the top, but I'm not actually opposed to Fluffy having taken everything over because that is the next logical conclusion from the previous game. Yeah, I think it's definitely just a slight execution problem because if Fluffy was like more prominent, I mean, it makes the cat and like Fed logo a little bit more of a clue in hindsight. And if you're like able to piece together the clues, like I was able to guess like Fluffy was the bad guy, but in my mind I didn't put together the cat icons of the feds and like the random places they show up all over the city as belonging to Fluffy. Like if more stuff like that was put in there to hint at, you know, the catastrophe, then it would have worked a bit better to me. Anyways, I do recommend this game, but with several caveats. Pros: cheeky writing that relies heavily on neo-80s nostalgia, though sometimes on a bit heavy-handed. It's not enough to just reference the past, you need to go somewhere with it. Fortunately, PC2 often does. This is a good point, and this was what led to my Kafka rant at the beginning. I definitely agree. I mean, I definitely agree with this. I completely agree. All the references and stuff are definitely a pro. Fantastic pixel art, yeah, 100% also agree here. It's really good. It's excellent. Fighting system has a lot of potential, but it isn't fully realized yet. Also completely agree with this. All right. Maybe I did not need to make a 90-hour video. All you needed was this for one review. All right, cons, maybe a bit too much grind. Yeah, I kind of agree. Game doesn't communicate. Yeah, before I move on. Too much grind, especially in like the second chapter. Second chapter and like the end and like the almost beginning. I don't think third chapter was that bad. Like maybe the middle of third chapter, just to get enough money in order to fight the bad guys at the end. That's actually something I should have talked about, but I didn't because I'm bad. But there is definitely too much grind and not enough fighting. If there was more fighting grind, then I think it'd be okay. But a lot of the grind is just working, and you're going to play Punch Club, you know? The game doesn't communicate its fighting style clearly enough. I'm 15 hours in and still don't understand several things. Like how come I cannot drain the opponent's stamina even though I've doubled their stamina and they take no turns to recharge. I also don't fully understand the initiative system, blah 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 blah. Yeah, I think the fighting system definitely needs to be explained more. Clippy tries in the beginning, but once you start adding all these other mechanics to it, a lot of the stuff just goes nowhere. And you know, you can just ignore it. Actually, that's the biggest problem. Like, you don't actually have to know how the system works. It's just a thing of like, oh, you can just RNG it, or if your stats are high enough, you can just body the opponents. And I think that's something that they should definitely cap or work on, explaining all the hidden mechanics, like all the details, because if you go through all the abilities like at the end, like it's crazy, like the amount of stuff that is there. And if you look at all the opponents perks and all the other fighter perks, there's a lot of depth. It's just like, you can ignore most of it. That's the problem, right? I have no idea what the merits of side punch, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I agree. Like the punches and kicks, if you're going to have them, they need to have their own pros and cons. Like maybe punches are weaker, but more accurate, and kicks are stronger, but less accurate, stuff like that. Or like kicks can break through like guards better, something like that, to make them like more meaningfully different. The game says what they do, but in terms of actually works with the opponent, blah, blah, no clue. Devs, I hope for PC3, you rework the system more akin to rock, paper, scissors, where you actually have to know that if the opponent uses a rock move, you need to have a paper move. Like I can imagine a system where the opponent would have moves like ABC and defenses DEF, but you could only plan against 4 in total. Yeah, I mean, that could definitely work. I mean, this goes back into using like punches and kicks and having like different blocks and dodges that are better against punches or kicks or different types of moves. Yeah, I mean, this ties into this point of here. The fighting system is not clear enough. And so this just brings the entire con to the fighting system of having a lot of depth, but like it's not explained. So you can just ignore it, and that's not good. You don't want to be able to ignore like the main draw of the game if you just have enough stats. I mean, you know, maybe if you were playing like a stat-based RPG, then that'd be okay, but you still want to know what's going on, right? And that's why the final fight is really good, because it actually tests you on the knowledge. And it turns out that you basically don't have much of that knowledge. All right, reading this con by Metal Frame. This one's pretty popular. All right, completed the game and can say, if you like the first Punch Club, this one will suffice and give you what you want. Now onto the pros. Yeah, I agree. If you like the first one, you'll probably like the second one enough because it fulfills the same niche. But I can definitely understand getting annoyed by the work grind. Pros, the game looks better with good animations and updated pixel art, hard to agree. Music is definitely way improved. There's also a lot more tracks, so it's not just like the same 3 tracks repeating. Fighting mechanics have much better defense, offense, utility slots, agreed. Dividing these up into defeats, defense and offense definitely allows for a lot more flexibility in the system. There needs to be more unique moves for each of them though. Stat decay is gone, replaced with fuel, much better system. Interesting. Okay, that's a replacement for stat decay, I guess. The fuel. I mean, stat decay was like an actual issue. Fuel was like literally the biggest non-issue ever. You just had to train to energize it up, and like if you're not training, you're not playing the game. Maybe if they make like the tonus requirements more harsh, that would work. Because I really liked stat decay in the first game. I don't think it would work at all for the second game. So if the fuel system for tonus is supposed to replace it, then that's okay. That actually answers one of my questions. I'm not gonna go fix it in the review. but it's pretty unnoticeable. Like, I never had an issue with fuel. I guess, I mean, I mentioned it. I wish the tonus costs were a lot higher, or like certain moves required way more tonus than others, stuff like that, to make you like change up your style more. Cons: story isn't great, just feel what it means, and feels rushed. It feels rushed at the end. I mean, it is filled with memes, but that's Punch Club's term. Ending was lackluster, felt like nothing really matters. Yeah, hard to agree there. Oh my god, the ending, oh my god. At least in the first, like, oh man. We're gonna get into spoiler territory if I start talking about this, but yeah. The game has a lot of grinding, more than the first game. After second playthrough, I was done. I mean, I barely play games the second time, so I don't really care. But yeah, there is definitely more grinding. It's not. It is actually. I mean, comparatively, it's more. It's like I played like double the amount of hours in this, but the story is also longer. Yeah, they need to cut down on the work grind. Just increase how much cash work gives you. That's it, and you can cut down a lot of the grind. No traveling to new zones like in the first game. Just the same old city. Yeah, I was wanting the other city to be a new location. Like we traveled to Russia in the first game, and then I mean, that's it. That's the only real. It's the only real new location. But I guess it was a nice change of scenery. It's not like we did anything at all at Russia. But I agree. I feel like if we had access to like the desert area outside, like the bridge, before going to the resistance, that'd be cool. Or if you had training in cyberspace, that'd also be pretty neat. Skill tree is bigger, but many of the skills are just slight improvements over previous skills. Yeah, hard to agree. Like, it always turns into just pick the move that does more damage, because that's how you're gonna win. Stamina usage is way too high in fights early on until you get your stamina stat up. Balance of different skill trees is way off. Agility hard, strength normal, stamina easy. I mean, I will agree, stamina is not hard. It was easy. Like overall, like I lost like 5 fights, like 10 if you include the final boss, because 5 of those were just from the final boss. But you know, that's not a lot when compared to how many fights you have in the game. There's no way agility is hard. Strength has to be hard. Agility, like maybe agility in the beginning is hard. Maybe you just have like low everything where you're talking about stamina usage. But once you get like anywhere with agility, it's dodging is broken. Like I don't understand. Just dodging is really broken. But I would definitely call strength hard, because dodging and blocking, stamina being easy, I'm okay with if stamina is easy. But there's no way agility is hard. Strength is definitely the hardest. All in all, I had my time with this game. Okay, you had, sure. And I was hoping for something bigger and better. I guess they delivered. But the game didn't do anything exciting like the playoffs in the first game or going to a new place to train. The playoffs, I mentioned, that like there's not like a real boss fight between the divisions, and I think that's one of the biggest issues, because it doesn't feel like you're actually moving up divisions. It just feels like the same fight's happening over and over again. And I think if you had boss fights to make the divisions like feel separate, that'd be epic. I don't know what point it's trying to make, but yeah. It feels like you're doing the same thing day in, day out when nothing really. Yeah, you do the same thing literally in the entire game. It definitely gets a pretty. By midpoint of chapter 2, it's like, all right, you're wanting to add something new to your routine, and you have your 2 additional jobs of the police or being a trainer for mixed gym, but they still feel the same as everything else. So you'll unlock a job that pays pretty good, but that's about it. You'll just extreme your train. Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised they didn't make like equipment better. Also, speaking of, they need to do. Oh, here actually, I just thought. Whilst waiting for the next fight, you do old school train to get your stats up. Fight, blah blah blah. OSR, like old school points, definitely need to. Something needs to be done with that, because I literally mentioned it in the beginning and then never talked about it because they ended up just like being useless. Like I think like the most useful ones were to unlock inventory slots, but also those were pretty useless as well after like unlocking your third one, because like you never really needed your inventory for anything besides food, and you could just go to food places for free anyways by the time, you know, that'd be an issue. Anyways, this is my honest review. I wouldn't say it's a bad game by any means, just need a new area or two, and the story's ending to not be a jumble of memes. The ending, oh man, we needed the ending. The ending needed to tie in better with the actual story. Speaking of the story, our character also needed his own personal arc instead of nothing happening with our character. But yeah. Oh, gonna give it a next hopeful review while I'm at it. All right, the next con review, I'm gonna do the pro, con, then pro. So here we go, by Gigawolts. I love the first Punch Club. It felt simple and straightforward. Work, train, gear up to fight. I loved it so much I played through 3 times. Jesus Christ. I played through 3 times and got all the achievements. I can't say the same for Punch Club 2. The sequel added additional grind that was longer and more tedious than PC1's gameplay loop. Mid-game progression felt incredibly slow. I agree, this is definitely the slowest it felt. That's what I'm talking about, chapter 2 to mid 3-ish. Yeah, definitely felt pretty slow. Sure, there are more jobs than you can do, but that doesn't make it better. All the jobs are similar, so but you always wanted to do slime training and then strength training because those paid, or strength training paid the most, and slime training slime work did not interfere with anything. So PC2 was infused with the spirit of job simulator rather than the spirit of fighting management sim. Yeah, I can that definitely feels it. It still has the fighter management aspects, but there is too much of the being at the job to get work aspects. That started any interest in doing more than one playthrough. Understandable? Yeah, I can understand that. I was initially disappointed with the inability to adjust the speed of fights, but with the sequel's combat system, it makes sense. You're able to adjust your style between rounds, and the fight speed helps with monitoring the status of the fights, adding new levels of depth and strategy. However, the new combat system could use better defined terminology and stats. The skill descriptions were vague in explaining which skills were better than others, i.e. the dodges in the agility tree. It seemed much harder to not soft-lock yourself, leading to frustration when you've been grinding only to get stuck and have to restart 15 hours in. How do you soft-lock yourself? You spend GPP points on like garbage skills. I mean, you can just train yourself out of it. Like, you don't really, I don't know how you get hard suck. Like, you don't have to, like, this, like, I mean, there's no way you can soft-lock yourself. You just fight other fighters and then train. I mean, I guess it just makes it easier. You don't want to waste the time. The story did not have the same care put into it compared to the combat. The plot heavily relied on fetch quests, which felt like weak writing to get your character to explore different areas compared to PC1's Russia/prison arc. Actually, here's a good point. So in Punch Club 1, the second or the last third actually splits up into a champion arc or a prison arc depending on the path you took. And that's something that was missing completely from this game. I mean, it makes sense why it's not there story-wise. But having the option to have like 2 different paths to get to your ending definitely helps the replayability, adds way more flavor, like, you know, varies up the gameplay loop. Like, there's no endurance fighting that you would in this, like, there's no endurance fights. And I agree, like, there's a lot of fetch quests. Like, I definitely felt like the job quests were underutilized and pretty lame. They didn't really go anywhere. Like, the delivery boy character, just like the delivery manager and delivery boy character, like, they were built up through the job quest, but they didn't go anywhere. The writing also felt more heavy-handed than in PC1. I don't know about this one. PC1, like, the story was like, there was barely a story. Like, to be honest, PC1 barely had a story. This one, like they were at least trying new stuff. We got like, you know, we had the whole Dick plot line, we had our own plot line, and they were intertwined with each other, which was actually pretty nice. It's actually pretty epic that it came together in the end. So I mean, I don't know if I agree with this. There's an overabundance of nostalgia bait and pop culture references that were distracting, not as witty. I mean, I don't know if, like, sure, yes, but that's all Punch Club. At the end of the game, I unlocked 10 achievements just clicking through dialogue. Oh yeah. That's because the end of the game it was all story. It was all story at the very end. I think like the flash forward scenes should have been paced way better instead of just going to one location after another and just watching a cutscene. I spent more time on that final arc running around the city for one final MacGuffin hunt and exposition dump than I spent on the final fight. There were moments where the writing was welcome, but they were overshadowed by the rest. Also, wow, that ending indeed. The soundtrack, artwork, and animations were a significant upgrade from PC1 and complemented the new setting well, I'd agree. It's plain to see that they put care into those aspects of the game. It's a shame they couldn't have put the same amount of polish into the other areas. I finished the game to see if it had more offer, but it doesn't get much better after the first 8 hours. I really wanted to like the game as much as Punch Club 1 and give it a fair shake. Unfortunately, the most memorable piece will be the distasteful grind. If you really like PC1, it will be a toss-up of whether you like this one or not. I mean, you'll probably like this game if you like PC1. Depending on what you're after, you might not like it as much. But personally, as a story person, I liked it better. I have no intentions of replaying it anytime soon. I mean, if there's DLC, I'll probably play it then. I mean, yeah, there is more grind. There is definitely more grind, and if you don't want that, then that will definitely be off-putting. All right, the final review I will cover by Outta W. Giddy. I don't know. I'm not gonna say that as one word. I don't know how to say this one word, but here we go. Their positive review. I played the original Punch Club, and this game is a lot easier to play for a beginner. As a singing casual who only beat the first game on easy mode, the lack of stat decay is much appreciated. The game is not hard. I mean, even as a beginner, the first game was not hard. The second game was also not hard. Oh, actually, I think the first game might have had a hard mode. If the first game had a hard mode, I should have played it on the hard mode. Well, it has an easy mode. I think it was the same. It might have been easy and normal. But if the first game had a hard mode, I definitely should have played in hard mode because normal mode for here is definitely too easy. There are plenty of background references I really liked, and sure, some jokes were dumb, but I take comfort in the fact that at least one person got a laugh out of them. Still, I got my gripes at this game. I'll tell you why. Spoilers for both games abound. That's your warning. I've technically lightly touched around on some spoiler stuff, but here we are. We're actually going into spoiler territory with this review. 1. Lack of content. I was hoping for something akin to the street fights in Ultimate League so you could fight over seriously whenever there were no fights in the Premier League and not just spar with silver. That's true, there's only one league, there's only one main league, there's no ultimate fights at all, or the endurance fights from like just fighting the evil genius stuff, blah blah blah. I also wish that there would have been a character akin to Roy from the last game, complete with a revenge plot where you had to head to a brand new location, definitely needed a new location after death to a powerful foreign fighter. We don't need just a thing of Roy, but there definitely needed to be a stronger character moments for, you know, the other characters, or just a character that we were attached to. Like if Juliet had died after we had known her better, oh Jesus Christ! If Juliet had died after we got to know her better, then that death and her being kidnapped by the feds would have been much more impactful. Like something should have been like, there definitely should have been like 3 different story beats from after we met her to when she was caught. Like we meet her and then she gets caught immediately and we form no relationship to her. But I feel like something should have been done there, and that would have been a suitable replacement for the character development that Roy provided. I was also disappointed by the absolute nothingness that is the wasteland outside the city. All that happens is you get a plot dump and locking you into the endgame until you beat the final boss and flip a switch. I was at least expecting some post-game content, or at least something else other than being forced into a final boss fight and ending the game. I agree. It is weird that like you just get hard locked into the story and like you can't do anything else besides the story. Like it is really weird that I could access Apu's shop, I could access the sewers, but I couldn't complete Apu's quest. After running this section of review, which section? Here we go, the new location. After running this section of review, I learned about the criminal path you could take instead of the championship route and Punch Club 1 akin to the Detective Sensei route split in the game. But the latter is much more fleshed out, I agree, because the latter takes you to an entirely new league, which then takes you to the final island where you fight the Red-Eyed Man. And I'm surprised that nothing actually came of the Sensei route. Like we got a meditation mat, became a master. That's what I was talking about in the analysis / review of like, we don't really feel like a master. Sure, we opened a gym that was already mixed place, but we didn't really do anything worthy of becoming a master. It's not like we didn't even fight like a big opponent or anything. Speaking of the ending, here's a spoiler text. So here we go. I found my way through 3 familiar characters, took down a super fighting robot controlled by an evil feline in 3 bouts, where its stats changed each time, and discovered that the protagonist's father has been locked up in a matrix of never-ending violence for the past 2 decades. Flip the switch to delete the virtual world, killing the previous player character, and then what happens? 3 teeth-looking mofos show up, kidnap everyone at the event, and skedaddle while talking about some intergalactic tournament that no one on this green earth cares about. Frankly, I believe this to be the most Gainax of all Gainax endings in any indie game ever. And keep in mind, the Punch Club games are meant to have joke endings. I don't know about meant to have joke endings, but the first game's ending, like, where it was a "I am your father" meme, but okay, the time travel shenanigans don't make sense. But like, at least it was conclusive. At least there was like a question that was being asked, and of who was the red-eyed man, and who was that man that killed our father, and that reveal of it being our father that killed our father, and from a different timeline, is wild. And I'm surprised that that's not where this story decided to head. Instead, I appreciate the change in aesthetic, but like, we just went like completely off the rails. But what the hell, Lazy Bear? Maybe instead of whatever that was, you could have shown us what happened after we flipped the switch and killed the metaverse. I agree, that would have been cool if we had like an actual secondary ending. But no, we're getting out of Earth's atmosphere with this one. We're going to space. God, what disappointingly out of left field ending you gave us. I mean, PC's one ending made more sense, and it was also a joke ending that involved a time traveling dad from another timeline. Bravo, you thoughtful Ursids. I guess that's Lazy Bears. I was like, hey, what is that in Ursid? I'm like, okay, I guess that's Lazy Bear, because was it Ursid Minor or whatever, the constellation? Actually, I'm probably Ursid Major and Minor, right? I don't know. I'm not fucking star expert. I don't know. It's so hard to find the word for astrologist. Jesus Christ. 3, not enough uses for OSR. Yeah, I definitely agree with this one for sure. Okay, now that I've gotten that out of my system, let's talk about something less heated. OSR. These help you gain mostly out of combat skills that can increase your work efficiency, make you walk around the city faster, earn more rage after a fight, etc. That's all well and good, but the problem is that by mid to late game, you got more OSR, then you know what to do it. Hard agree. See, you access new OSR abilities by watching film tapes to your friend Henry at his house. There are a total of 11 movies and 35 abilities, each with varying OSR costs. Each time you watch a film, you get a heap of OSR to spend on your new abilities. You can also earn OSR by renovating Mixed Gym and later on maxing out the progress bar during your gym training session. Unfortunately, by the time you've gotten up to around 1000 OSR, you would have pretty much gotten all the abilities related to OSR. TLDR, you will have more OSR than you'll ever need. If I was one of the developers, I would have included more movies and locked either more significant passive abilities or more powerful moves for combat behind them, and also reduce the amount of OSR you get from watching movies or increase the cost of abilities. I wouldn't change any of the things of the passive or anything, but I definitely think here where we add more significant passive abilities for combat perhaps, or more powerful moves, like a special OSR moves, definitely is something that should have been added. I think if we didn't want to do moves specifically, definitely significant passives, because like, to be honest, you can completely ignore OSR. And sure, it will probably take you like, couple more cycles of the 24-hour days, but not that much more. Like, I definitely wasted a good amount just like, you know, doing nothing. Minimal PC 1 character presence. Just as a statement, I don't like, this is not necessarily a pro or con. It's just the direct. I mean, we started off referencing okay, for most of the story, yeah, I agree. It's just cameos. I kind of liked it though. I kind of wish, I don't know if I liked where the story headed. I'm okay with it having gone like many years into the future and all that stuff. Anyways, being a sequel, it's obvious that some of the characters in PC1 would be making a return. Mostly everyone I expected to return came back, although I was disappointed to see that not everyone returned or had a larger narrative impact. Specifically, I'm talking about the rest of the Mutant Ninja Alligators, the Man in Black, and Huey. I agree, I have no idea what happened. Like, Bill was there, but like he didn't really contribute much, like except for, you know, the game station at his place. The Man in Black was completely not there at all. I have no idea why. He has no presence in this game at all. Like, he definitely should have done something. And Huey. I agree, Huey didn't go anywhere because he was set up as resisting the fake resistance, but that entire narrative thread by the end was abandoned. And I mean, I like what they were doing with Huey, but it just feels incomplete. Like, the Huey storyline is just incomplete, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I say his storyline feels complete. The way the game ends, it feels incomplete. I'll start with the Mutant Ninja Alligators. Bill makes return, but that's about it. Mark, Gabe, and Steve were nowhere to be found outside of their mask and frame picture in the hideout. The Raccoon Master doesn't show up either. Oh, I forgot that he even existed. To be honest, though he was quite old by the time, perhaps he passed away. So what about the other alligators? Where did they run off to? Good point. I mean, I put the dude in the thumbnail, so I put one of them in the thumbnail for the previous video. So I do wish that they had a larger presence, because, like, you know, I don't even know necessarily if they needed a larger presence, but I do think it'd be cool if we saw the rest of them, or at least got a hint of what they might be up to. If they just died, maybe even hint at that. That could have been like, there are clues in the game that maybe could lend themselves to them having just died, but the fact that like Bill doesn't mention it makes me believe that that's probably not the case. Well, anyway, let's talk about the Man in Black. In PC1, it's revealed that he is actually the protagonist's father, and by extension of the player character PC2's grandfather, from another timeline, who traveled back in time to kill himself to stop the medallion from being split apart, and causing one of his sons from going insane and killing his brother. Yep, he appears in a few of the recap cutscenes, but never in the actual events of the game. In the last cutscene, he appears again. Oh yeah, he is shown. Yeah, okay. I was like, in the last cutscene, I was like, wait, what? He showed up in the alien scene? But no. They're talking about the recap where he walks through a portal. Like, he just opens a portal and walks through it. Like he knows about Fluffy and he walks through a portal. Like okay, like there's so many questions with how Fluffy even got to the island. How did Fluffy hold the needle to stab our character? How did no one react? Anyways, a lot of questions. I get that PC1 pretty much resolved his arc. No, it didn't. It did not resolve his arc. What are we talking about? The game ended before any resolution could occur. But I guess I kind of know what they mean. Like, we found out our father killed our father, but like, it didn't go anywhere. Like, I can't call that a resolution if it left us with a cliffhanger. But just where did he go? Did he go to another point in time, perhaps? Just where did the Man in Black run off to? I'm sure they'll probably bring him back for the intergalactic tournament. And it's the intergalactic tournament. It's going to be pretty wacky. I'm sure he'll make his appearance. I'm sure, like, Fluffy will make his appearance. I wonder if the Dawn will come back. I wonder, did Fluffy kill the Dawn? Because we took care of the Dawn. Did he get locked up? I don't know. That's another character that could have shown up, possibly, actually. Lastly, we have Huey. In the previous game, he's a thug who could potentially mug you if you were walking around while carrying too much cash. Here, he's a trash-talking fighter in Silver League. After you beat him, he takes on the moniker of the most darkest fist ever, claiming to be inspired by the father of PC2's protagonist, who is also known as a superhero called the Dark Fist. By the time he takes on that role, however, he only shows up 2 more times in the entire game. Both times are harassing / being harassed by some dunderheads in tinfoil suits. Afterwards, nothing. Yeah, I agree. It felt like it didn't go anywhere. Like, the narrative thread of him sowing chaos, actually the entire fake / false resistance doesn't go anywhere. Like, I don't know why it exists like as a meme, but like the actual resistance is not hinted at outside of Carla and doesn't really have a presence inside of the game itself. So it makes you feel way more attached to the false resistance, and you want to know what's happening with them rather than the actual resistance. He just appears from the game completely. I can also attribute this complete to the girl you encounter while delivering some cheat detection parts to Uncle Barry on the midpoint of the game. She shows up, gets arrested, turned into a hologram, and just ceases all plot relevance afterwards. Yeah, I talked about this earlier. I think definitely it's okay for her to have turned into a hologram. I'm surprised that she didn't reappear. Like, they created her model. She just didn't get used. I think honestly, she really should she really should have been fridged. Like, for this story, like, you know, there's a lot of cliches already going on, a lot of memes, a lot of references. Straight up, after the meet cute, we should have had several events with her. We should have had Mita. We should have had like something with the movies, and then she should have been caught by the feds, and then we should have seen the resulting aftermath of her becoming a hologram, and that would have been insane to our character. Would have provided growth. It would have helped the character understand the stakes. That's a big problem. There's like not real stakes, and the ending does not help with that. I really thought there was some potential for a romantic subplot like in PC1 with the protagonist and Adriana. Oh, speaking of Adriana, like, honestly, Adriana and Apu, like, their romance subplot, like, I was actually like, you know, that was actually getting kind of complicated. But who cares about that when there's things to punch, am I right? More like when we need to work for money or punching slimes. Honestly, I just wish a character like Huey and the girl could have had more spotlight, even if it was just a little bit. I agree. I think they definitely needed to focus on like characters. This is where I went back in the first game and I talked about reducing the amount of fights the amount of fights in general. And this game definitely reduced the amount of fights. However, the characters, in turn, for reducing the amount of fights, each of the characters should have been developed more. Like, if each of the characters in the league have their own plot line, that would have been crazy. Like, we would sure reduce the amount of fighters to like 4 in a league if you have to. Or 4 might be a little bit like 4 in a league, but add like a supplemental fighting arena in addition to it where you fight random bozos that you don't care about, but you have like 3 different divisions and there's only 4 opponents in each of those divisions, but each of those characters like have growth, and each of those fights are actually like important ones. That'd be like a good way to handle characters, I think. Because like something was going on with like Aesop and Plato in the first league, but that didn't go anywhere either, actually. Now, despite all this, Punch Club 2 is not a bad game, agree. The fights are actually quite fun, agree. Swapping out moves and fighting styles to adapt to the situation, and even if I found myself to overcome exhilaration after triumphing over a few fights, I couldn't beat the first time. If you want to play, that's fine with me. Go ahead and know yourself out with the engaging combat and stupid humor of a fit for a cyberpunk adventure game. Just do your best to not take the story too seriously, and you shouldn't end up bitter and disgruntled from it like me. The story definitely begs itself, like doesn't want it to take itself too seriously, but then it talks about such serious topics, and like the entire Dick plotline was super serious. First of all, like, I don't know what happened with Martin. Well, like, oh, honestly, the entire the Dick plotline is like actually crazy serious. Like it's like the entire back half. Like we go like from like about memes. Oh, that world has ended, and it's kind of whack. I mean, it's interesting. I'm not like, it's definitely a okay direction to have gone. It just feels a bit undercooked. So to make a long story short, Punch Club 2, fast forward, is stupid but fun. I've got so many complaints I want to make this a negative review, but I know that any important problems can be fixed by the time Punch Club 3 comes out. If it comes out, that is. So that's why I made a positive review. I'm certain I'll use it for your ends. Can understand what they did wrong and what they did right with this game and make the next Punch Club even better than its predecessors. I agree. It's definitely a 2 steps forward, 1 step back game. Because like the fighting mechanics are way more in depth than the first game. Like the first game was actually like very like low brain power. And there's definitely more thinking in these fights, and there's definitely room for a lot more complexity. It's just that wasn't really enforced on the players as much as it should be. And if they manage, and in the next game, if they manage to wrap up all the narrative loose ends and threads, then that'll be good enough for me. Also, while looking for some Steam reviews, I stumbled across some discussion posts, but this one by Madcap Beatitude stood out to me. The Mad Lad tested a bunch of stuff that might be of interest. Yeah, we got a long one. Tested some things at endgame to see what would happen. Oh, I gave this a little cool award, by the way, because it's pretty interesting. On my latest run, I used a strength build for the first time and also sided with the police, though not for the first time. Having beaten the game both ways, I wanted to watch the police route really closely for any exclusive lore, and to be honest, I don't think I found any. You learn more in the sensei path, but you don't miss anything that I can tell. Okay, well that clears that up. I also wanted to learn what the reward was for a promotion to Sergeant, since I accidentally got locked out of this by defeating Jax a little too quickly on my first police run. I won't spoil what the reward is, but it's a joke reward in my opinion, and very disappointing. It's useful but pretty trivial by the time you're remotely powerful enough to earn it. I guess it's something like the meditation mat for Sensei / Master, where it just boosts your mood to maximum and you can waste time for the end of the game until each of the fights. That's the best use for it. I chose a police run to test a theory, since the maximum performance reward on a shift of police work is plus 100 GPP. This sounds awesome in the early chapters, but it's structurally impossible to get 100 GPP. First of all, I know in the voiceover, every time I said GPP, I was like, wow, I really should have enunciated that better, but what are you gonna do? Re-record the voiceover? I'm good. I already recorded like 7 trillion times, so I mean, I really should have, been more aware of it while recording it, but it's okay. But it's structurally impossible to get 100 GPP without completing at least 3 of the police side quests, more than half of the game. And it's pretty darn difficult. Yeah, you like, in order to max out the police bars for GPP or for the Sensei quest OSR points, you have to go through a lot of the internal quests, and that definitely does take you very late into the game. And it's pretty darn difficult until you've completed 4 of the police side quests and are near the 2/3 max. However, also I was gonna say, I guess the cops giving you GPP points instead of OSR points makes it more useful, but I mean, it looks like you don't get enough anyways, and I never really had a problem with GPP points. I guess if you try to do different styles, I guess that's how you soft lock yourself. You try to go into multiple different combat fighting styles and never have any strong abilities, but even still, I feel like it's just a skill issue, I'm not gonna lie. However, that 4th side quest reward makes it pretty easy to get maximum reward without even working your whole shift. Yeah, it's pretty game breaking. Probably the real incentive to shoot the police for goal is to make the game easier. Yeah, it's a work efficiency boost that lets you get maximum reward and about 6 bars of paperwork, which only takes about 2 takes each. So yeah, same as Sensei, essentially. Become a paperwork monster if you're making any headway as a detective. What's interesting about this easy plus 100 GPP bonus in the late game is that it frequently gives you the currency you need to purchase that powerful new skill that was out of your reach. I never really had this issue, to be honest, and often shrinks the price tag on challenging higher ranking fighters, or increases the price for beating up lower ranking fighters. I noticed that Jax, the highest ranked Division 1 fighter, has a GPP score of over 9100. Obviously, this means that by defeating him, we get to Upper City. However, the condition we were quoted for Ascension to Upper City is only 9000 GPP. So what happens if we get to 9001 plus GPP but are still ranked 2nd in the Pro Leagues? First of all, I know the answer for this is like, I think you just automatically get sent up once you hit 9000, but do we proceed with chapter 3.5 without defeating Jax, or do we have to take 1st in the league to advance? Actually, you know what? This is a good question. Actually, a good question. I don't, before I read this, I don't think we probably don't have to defeat Jax. We just have to reach 9000. because I beat Jax like 3 times before I was able to get over to 9,000 anyways. So I don't know if beating him is required, because I don't know if you could, I don't know, can you even get more than 9,001 or still rank second? Okay, anyway, I don't know, I'm asking these questions, but here's the big reveal. Okay, my police / strength, oh yeah, because you get GPP from police. My police / strength, oh geez. Oh my god, my voice is getting hard to talk. My police / strength run has a GPP score of 9138 and is still trailing Jax by 9 GPP. Nothing happened. You can't actually get summoned to Upper City with 9,000 GPP. You have to win the Pro Leagues. Oh, interesting. This raises a question: does Chapter 3.5 trigger when we defeat Jax or become the first ranked fighter in the Pro Leagues? If I do my paperwork really well, will Uncle Barry call me into his office, or does nothing happen again? This dude's really in it, huh? Theory 2. Is it possible to begin the end of the game by gaining GPP outside of combat? Testing this now, it will be careful work. I defeated a Desperado and thankfully gained only 1 GPP from this lofty rank, so my next shift to paperwork should make me the world champion. Alright, he achieved maximum reward on the last shift of police work, then went upstairs to work out while I waited for the end of his shift. At 20, nothing special happened. My character now has 9,239 GPP and is the highest ranked fighter in City, above even Jax. You cannot trigger Chapter 2.5 by doing paperwork. Okay, interesting. So you actually have to have enough GPP and defeat Jax. Oh, hold on. We haven't gotten to the defeat Jax part. We have to win the Pro League and be ranked first. Do you have to defeat Jax? Oh, let's see. Yes, being ranked first and defeating the 4th ranked Desperado triggers the end of Chapter 3. I beat the 2nd ranked fighter, the game's fastest speedster opponent outside the VR endgame, and beat Desperado 3 to 4 times while I was grinding out the GPP to overtake Jax without fighting him. My police / bear character now has 9,240 GPP. He knows every skill in the Path of the Lazy Bear and in the basic school, and is only missing Path of the Dancing Monkey and Pendulum. I don't think this confirms that it's impossible to learn unlimited skills and even master all 4 major schools. For example, 3.5. Yes, being ranked first and defeating the 4th ranked Desperado triggers the end of Chapter 3. Okay, so you don't actually have to defeat Jax, you just need to be ranked first. That makes sense because, you know, none of the actual ladder champions are treated as like a boss or anything. My police / bear character now has 9,240 GPP. He knows every skill in the Path of the Lazy Bear and basic school, and is missing only Path of the Dancing Monkey and Pendulum. I don't think this confirms that it's impossible to learn unlimited skills and even master all 4 major schools. For example, Chapter 3.5 doesn't really push off until you talk to the janitor at Apple Store. Oh, okay. And with the more league challenges, you no longer lose GPP if you retrain from the fighting altogether. If your character simply does another 160 or so police shifts of impeccable work and never follows up with Uncle Barry's contact, it should be possible for your GPP to go up and up and up. That sounds so horrible. Why would you ever want to do this? For RP purposes, the very beginning of Chapter 3.5 is the perfect time to grind GPP in a police run to learn whatever you want. However, people who be in this game will know that your skills don't really matter beyond this point, as their will change. Yep. You can make the Upper City fights easier by grinding your lowest stats at higher numbers so that the total is higher. For this reason, the endgame is somewhat easier with the strength build, even if the start of the game is somewhat harder. Okay, yeah, start of strength is hard. Not surprised. What I don't know is whether GPP hard caps at 9,999, which is what the scientist, the BFG robot both have, or whether 10,000 GPP is possible. I'd probably guess it's just capped at 9,999, but sure, this is a good question, I guess. Since this is considerably less insane than the 25k or so GPP I roughly estimate that I take to master all skill trees, that's horrible. I'm gonna save my game before meeting with the janitor and see what happens. Alright, this was, he edited this on the 27th. This was first posted on the 22nd, and he came back a day later. Okay. Update. After returning to work for 9 additional shifts of police work after completing Chapter 3, I can confirm that there is no hard cap on GPP. Oh, interesting. My police / bear endgame character has the monstrous build of 31, 24, 27, and the towering GPP score of 10,040. Interesting. Okay, so it's not capped. The game does not add a comma, but it does acknowledge 10,040 as your completed goal amount, since that's a GPP of the world champion yourself. Okay, interesting. there's no point to ever do this, but it is cool that you can go above, you know, you can go even above Emmett or the Giant. That's interesting. That's not just capped at 9,999, but I feel like they just did not bother to cap it because they're like, oh, who's actually going to do this? But this dude did it. I did accidentally meet with the janitor while stepping foot inside office store to buy food. In hindsight, I should have shopped exclusively out of a police station vending machine or eaten noodles in the club sheet. In order to make 18 days elapse as painlessly as possible, though, the loop I got was to eat, train, sleep from mom's house. The cot and fridge were both there, and the treadmill punching bag provided a sustainable loop of exercise and the green-yellow exhaustion, which provided good results inside the relevant buffs their effectiveness. When I had no brain overload, I would go in and abuse the extreme neurotraining at Silver's gym, and when it was time for work, I would pop in, spam paperwork until the bar was full, chat up my coworkers, get 100 reputation, eat some gym donuts or Cosmo Pizza to replenish hunger and morale, then snag a couple of gym donuts on my way out. It was easy to finish the routine with 5 hours left of my shift. Leaving time for some extreme neurotraining before grocery shopping at Office Place, visiting an old man under the bridge to clear any brain injuries, then heading home to work out in the garage until at least next morning. I'm glad to be done with the grind. I only did it out of curiosity and usually find it more fun to end the game when I'm ready to start the character from scratch when I want to play more. It has appeared that there's no cap on GPP for a police line player character. Wild Horses couldn't make me do the additional 150 shifts, 300 days it would take to max out all skill trees, but my character isn't actually that far from achieving a build of 30-30-30 that can learn anything. As it is, he's a scary dude to fight. He only has 2 fewer initiative than the game's highest rated speedster out of a VR environment. And just a few small points of stamina less than Desperado. The blocker, who in my opinion is actually the game's most challenging opponent. That's pretty intense, from a baller with 31 strength and 370 health, and who can use Shockwave for 45 damage, or Polar Starfist for 30 damage. Heck, even close overhand hitting for 18 damage sucks pretty bad for the dodge artist, whose dodge success is getting debuffed by the specific attack, as well as the flycatcher style. All that said, I think strength was my least favorite primary stat to play with. Theory confirmed, let's go. In Punch Club 1, I found agility the most fun, even if it seemed to have the lowest ceiling on how powerful it could become. In Punch Club 2, I ran agility on my first one and had a great time, but the stamina skill tree was fun of really fun tricks, and IMO might be the most powerful in his opinion. Okay, interesting. Stamina possibly the most powerful. I agree. It's probably the most well balanced because, you know, especially with feats at the end, you have the ability to hit blocks and dodges. Like, definitely strength is the worst because stamina strength is just better in general for everything because more energy means more hitting, even though hitting requires more energy if your strength goes up, but it's probably way better than just maxing out strength and then just having no stamina for each move and having to rest up like 300 energy in between each round. But yeah. But agility is I feel like but I did specify that it was an agility dodge skill that is broken. The dodges are broken. With that being said, this run has been ongoing for way too long. It's time to ask Lil Bobu to hack the GPP chip and begin on. Okay, well, there we go. Very interesting. You know, it is cool to know that you can go above 9,000 GPP if your heart desires. What will you do with that knowledge? What will I do with that knowledge? Nothing. I will instead choose to end this video. Wow, that final pros and cons live discussion went on for way longer than I expected. Let me know if you liked the style change or if you thought it was just filler content. That wasn't my intention, but after seeing its length and editing it down, I have to admit that it got a bit out of hand. I'm not sure what else I can add here now, except for the fact that you should definitely buy Punch Club 1 and Punch Club 2. The bundle for both games only costs $20 or $15 on sale, and I think that's pretty worth it. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you at least hit that like button. And if you haven't already checked out my previous video on Punch Club 1, because you're crazy, you'll probably enjoy that as well. I also have several other analyzed playthroughs on this channel that might interest you. Follow me on Twitter if you hate yourself, and with that, I wish you all a good night.